IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. We got a little something special for you today, at least I think. Got the OGs with y'all today. Vince and I were both at practice today. Sean Davis was at practice today. Sean Stiers is at practice today. IB was rolling deep today, but Vince and I are here with you to kind of go over what we saw from today's practice. Vince, it was a full open practice, so we got to see a lot. Notre Dame went through a lot of it. Was clearly like a package day. The defense was working on a lot of their blitz stuff, a lot
of recognition.
Right.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's offense was working on a lot of their blitz beaters, obviously. Very competitive practice, Vince, I thought, even though the only period that was really kind of full go was the one at the very end. But still very competitive, very physical practice, I thought. And offense won some, defense won some. Honestly, as an offensive coordinator, this day would have drove me nuts. As a defensive coordinator, this day probably would have drove me nuts. Maybe not as much as the offensive coordinator. As a head coach, I'd love today's practice because both sides of the ball had periods where I thought they won the deal. I think if I had to give like a winner overall, I'd say the defense won today.
Agreed.
There was, and I don't think that's debatable, but I thought there was things we saw from the offense that I'd have liked to build on this. But when you have days where it's a heavy blitz day, this early in spring, you're going to have the defense ahead and those type of things. I think that's something that people need to understand is context is important, Vince.
Yes.
And when you're practice 5 or so in, and it's a heavy blitz day, and the defense was bringing some – we can't really get into what they were doing, but they were bringing some really intricate second-level blitzes.
Yes.
You're going to have some periods where you're just not going to get time. But I also thought there were some things that I liked. The late team period, they broke off a couple really big plays in that final team period, had a couple players that we don't hear a lot about that had really good practices, Vince. Overall, I was very happy with it, right? Very happy with today's practice because I'm going to tell you something right now. You know, the one thing I don't ever want to see at practice is one side just dominate the other side. That's usually not a good thing. And even though the defense was the better unit today, I don't think it's necessarily debatable for me. It was a competitive practice, and both sides had their fair share of wins. And so that was one of my big takeaways. And the thing that we've talked a lot about, Vince, the speed. You saw that again today as well from both sides of the ball. There's no doubt.
Well, there's speed, there's athleticism. I mean, it's like watching a different group of people than we've watched in the past. And then you add in to the fact that there's some new coaches and you got to see kind of how they do things. And then just we can talk overall stuff. We'll get into it. There's a lot of little things that I kind of noticed that are different. And then there's big things that I noticed that are different. I mean, the way that the program deals with recruits at practice, that's something we've never seen before. Like it's just completely different and kind of fun to watch, if I'm being honest with you. Like I really enjoyed watching Chad Bowden bring recruits over to Marcus Freeman, kind of whisper in his ear at first. And that, you know, it was kind of like those political dramas that you watch when they've got like their aide that like, it's Mr. and Mrs. Joe Smith, and their daughter's headed off to college, and and then he's like, hey, it was just a well-oiled machine, the way things were going, and then you could tell certain recruits were given some special treatment, which is awesome, and it was just.
I felt like Marcus Freeman spent more time with the recruits today than he did with the team, which is, he did.
Oh, there's no doubt.
He did. I mean, early on, like during
it felt that way, yeah.
Once they got to team periods, he was locked in on the team. But like during individual stuff, we saw Deuce Knight on campus today. He literally did not leave Gino Guidugli's side once the practice got started. So he was. I mean, the core. He was with the quarterbacks the entire time. But we'll have plenty to talk about with recruiting down the road, Vince. I think overall it was a quality practice. We're going to go offense and then defense as we kind of dive through today's practice and get into it. And just overall, Vince, first, just your thoughts of what you saw from the offense. We'll get into specific players. You can mention them now, but we'll kind of go position by position as we dive into this more moving forward. But just overall impression from the offense today.
Yeah, overall, I think there was one point. So they do things a little bit differently. They kind of build up to team, and so they go do some individual stuff. They do some stuff with a couple of different position groups, and then they do routes on air, and they do, it was kind of fun, to be honest with you, because they had 5 quarterbacks, and 5 quarterbacks were throwing like every single rep. And, they were doing some 5 wide stuff. I texted you at one point during practice, and I was like, they're going 5 wide here. where are we? Like, never seen that before.
Yes.
You know, and it was 5 wide with a running back, obviously. So, but it was interesting to watch some of the schemes that they were doing and kind of the way that they were going about things. And at one point you came over to me and you're like, have you seen a ball on the ground yet?
Yeah.
And I was like, no.
During RVA.
I mean,
during
RVA. Yeah. Routes versus air. No. I mean, it was very clean. The throws were good. The routes were good. It was just very clean. And it was kind of, honestly, it was fun to watch. It was just a very crisp period of practice, right? Then we were able to watch some of the offensive line stuff. I was very impressed with a lot of the thing. I focused kind of on the starting group, when they were doing some one-on-ones and some combo work and some things like that. I was impressed with that first group, in that first kind of 1A, 1B group, I guess you could say, because they were rotating some certain guys in with the ones. I was very impressed in certain ways. And then it was like, okay, there's some room for improvement there as well. But overall, it was a good look. Once they went to team, some of the I think what was disappointing, and I want to be I don't want people to like freak out. Like, that's not my intention here.
It's going to happen anyway. So just say, I mean, that's
right.
just the reality of it. Someone's going to take what we say today, and
you're right.
Notre Dame's going to go 5-7 because of what they did on an April 1st practice. So just say it. Might as well just say
it. They were not very crisp in the passing game once they went to full team. I mean, they just weren't. Yeah. I mean, there were some balls that were high, there were balls that were low, there were drops,
and that's why I thought it was important to talk about. It was a blitz day.
Yes.
Right. I mean, so it wasn't just them going through their normal. I mean, they blitzed every
single play.
Right.
Yes, every single play.
Yeah.
And obviously, the second team offense struggled more than the first team offense, because they're going to with pressure.
In that last team period. I thought the second team offense. Right. I think the second team offense is the ones that open up that long run by Jabron.
They actually moved the ball, which the first team offense did not. So you're right. They had more success there at the very, very end. So, it was. I wanted to be more crisp, especially after watching the RVAs and watching the quarterbacks just put it in the chest of guys just over and over and over and over. I was hoping to see that in team, but you're right. It was a blitz period, so that's to be expected to a degree. But again, there were drops. There were, some throws I may not have made, but they're going to make them in practice, kind of a situation, right? So, wasn't the most crisp, but I'm still really excited about this offense overall.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, you see the talent, and we didn't see Logan Diggs today. We didn't see Jerian Price today.
I saw him. He had a white hood on. He was there.
Very little of Jaden Thomas. Did you notice that during team?
He was
fine. I think honestly, he was there during individual. He did some one-on-ones. I think it was just a rest day. Is my guess. Because he looked fine. Because you know how it is, Vince. Sometimes you just have that. I've heard Jaden's been really good so far in spring ball. Probably just a day where it's like, hey man, let's pull back on you today. And you do that throughout spring ball. You have days where some guys are just not going to get as much, as much work. But we saw a lot of Chris Tyree in the slot, for example, because of that. So I mean, there were some guys not out there today, which is going to matter. But the thing so let's kind of go quarterbacks, Vince. I thought kind of going through it, I thought Sam Hartman was really good in one-on-ones. And I thought he was pretty good in 7-on-7. I thought during the team periods, I thought the timing was really off for him and the receivers. And he was missing high a lot. And you saw that, like he had 2 in cuts to Chris Tyree that were high. Chris should have caught one of them. I mean, flat out should have caught the stop route. It was a little high, and that's going to be one of the issues with Chris Tyree, and one of the reasons why I'm not sure if he's necessarily a full-time receiver, Vince, because he's still learning a lot of the parts of it. He's not a Rondell Moore that's been playing receiver all the time, and he has a very small catch radius. I mean, you can't miss high on him, or that ball is going to get tipped up in the air. I think part of the thing today from the team stuff too was you got to give some credit to the defense. The defensive, and we'll get into that as well. I thought the windows were mostly small. They were really getting a good push at times and with their pressures. I didn't think the pass pro today was great during the team periods, especially with the first team offensive line. I think that factored into it as well. And I think the timing was thrown off, which is what a blitz period is supposed to be about. You know, I mean, if you're blitzing all day and your offensive line has all day to because giving your quarterback all day to throw, not only do you have a really good offensive line, but you have a very bad pass rush situation going on. And I mean, there was a times, Vince, today where we saw I mean, it was like 3 guys, right? I mean, like 3 Vipers on the field at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I knew what you were doing, Vince. I was saying, don't. It's all good. we're caught up, is what I meant to say.
Okay,
so
I'm gonna hide it then.
Yeah, so we're good down there. But I thought that was the thing for me, Vince, was that's just kind of what if it was a great win for the offense today, we'd have problems. We'd have very big problems because of the nature of what today's practice was. And it's fine to say that the defense won today. It is, and there's no excuses for it. It's just context.
Yeah.
And any football coach will tell you, if you have a day where you're working on your dime packages and you're blitzing a lot and your offense rips up your defense has major problems.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the offense able to do? They were able to get some big plays and draw some penalties. That's what you're going to do against. So, for example, I thought Tyler Buckner also had a bit of a rough day. I thought he was good during that last team period, like the first. He took the first reps with that when they went team, he was out there first because both quarterbacks got some time with the ones. And on the first play of team, they bring a blitz off the edge, and he just swings it out to Audric. I mean, just quickly rips it out to Audric before the defense could react. Audric makes one cut, and it's boom, he's gone. You know, he's off for a big play. Next play, they bring a blitz. They're playing off man to the boundary. Tyler hits his drop and just rips a stop route to Tobias Merriweather to move the chains. You know, so he was really good. Next play, he had a pivot route to Mitchell Evans. So, I mean, it started off good for the team, the offense then, and then the defense started to kind of hit some of their pressures. So, but I thought Tyler started well during that team period, and you know, he was 7-on-7 was a rough period for Tyler. You know, I mean, again, it was they were playing a lot of press coverage. I thought the receivers had some tough times today getting off of the press a little bit. For me, I thought that was something that I didn't like to see today. And so quarterback-wise, it was solid. Here's Steve Angeli's thing. When Steve was out there during like one-on-ones in Indy, he was throwing some ropes. But when he got out to 7-on-7 a team, he was bad. He was rushing everything. When Tyler's okay, the ball's got to come out quick. Bam, rip that sucker off. But it's sped up. It's not rushed. Like Steve was just flat out rush. I mean, he was just on his heels, throwing on his heels.
Yeah.
Did you see that, Vince? Like, he's like, okay,
absolutely. He threw off his back foot a few different times.
He's not ready for that. We didn't really see. I didn't notice
Kenny didn't get any team work because they only went 1s, 2s, and 3s like across the board. Because also in the spring, you got to remember you're going to be short on personnel. Like
and time.
And time as well. So you're not going to go 4 deep with an entire team because even the 3s were a bunch of walk-ons for the most part. I mean, for the most part. So they didn't go to 4s. So Kenny didn't get any time today. In team.
Right. So quarterback, Vince, we've talked a lot about quarterbacks in the past. Off day today. I thought Sam was really good during the red zone period.
Oh man!
When he came down there, he threw some.
Talk about that one ball that he had.
Yes,
that was
best. So he had a couple really nice fade routes today.
Yes,
I think was Steve the one that threw that. No, it was. I think it was Sam had 2 great balls today. Let me just check to make sure that second one was actually Sam. I don't want to give him credit for a throw that somebody else made. It was Sam. Yeah, he made 2 great touchdown throws today. Let me just find it real quick. I believe that's the one. He threw one to Dion. There was 2 balls that he threw today that were really, really impressive. So anyway, the one that we're talking about is they're in the red zone. It's like here's the back line of the end zone, and Notre Dame has that route where they'll kind of work in and then run an in cut right on the back line. Brady Quinn used to hit this a million times to Jeff Samardzian most Oval back in 05 and 06. That's the route we're referring to. And we're watching it, and I mean, Benjamin Morrison played it perfectly. Dion somewhat telegraphed it, but it's also like they're working on that route. You've seen it 6 times already, so Benjamin kind of cheated a little bit, if we're being completely honest. But he played it perfectly and beat Dion inside. So he's trying to work inside of Benjamin, but Benjamin won't let him get inside. And so what Sam did is Sam just said, fine, and just threw it straight on a line to the outside and forced Dion to stop and turn, and Dion did and made a great catch, and Benjamin's still running inside. It's like, dude, that's such a savvy throw. And he threw
that's a veteran throw.
Put some gas on it too.
Yeah, he did.
You know, and so I thought that was a great ball. Great ball that he threw, and it just kind of shows his veteran experience. He threw a couple really nice balls to Tobias Merriweather. I thought Tobias was of the receivers had the best day today. I thought
he's very consistent.
Today. Had a lot. Just the quarterbacks kept like Steven was missing him during one-on-ones. He was getting open. They were just missing him.
Yeah.
But I thought that was the part that you'll see Sam's savviness, his veteran experience. There's a couple times that he threw incompletions where you're like, that's on the receiver. He wasn't close, but you're like, that's on the receiver's got to see that. And he tried to throw like a cover 2 hole throw, and it was way behind. Was it Dion or was it Loren? I think it might have been Dion, but it's like Dion's got to see what the coverage is doing. He's got to see that it's cover 2. He's got to know he's got to kind of tread water a little bit and wait for that back shoulder throw. So it looked like a bad throw from Sam, but it was actually the receiver not recognizing the coverage and reacting to it well enough. But then other times he would miss wide, he'd miss high, and that came a lot from the defense. And there's a couple misses that him and Tyler both had where it's like, that's a heck of a play by the defensive back.
Yes.
That was kind of part of it too. So that was my overall thoughts of the quarterbacks today. And I thought Kenny wasn't getting a lot of zip on the ball today. And I wonder if today was kind of a scale back with him day too, because he's still coming back from the shoulder thing. So I wonder if today might have been
a pitch count.
Yeah. Just that's my opinion. We don't know that for a fact, but it's just kind of something that I saw that I noticed a little bit today from the team period, and maybe not throwing with the same zip that we saw him throw with the other day is kind of what I thought.
I will also mention the fact that I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Tyler was down in doing the red zone throws. I think it was just
no, he was.
It was just 18 and 10, right?
It was 18 and 8 early on, and then Sam came down later.
Right.
So Tyler stayed down with the run game. They were working on run game stuff. So that's why Tyler wasn't down there for that.
And I thought that Steve made a couple of nice throws down there in the red zone when they were just doing some one-on-ones.
He was not good early on, but as he settled in, he threw a couple nice balls. But that's the thing is he threw some nice one-on-ones. It's just when you put a pass rush in there and speed things up a little bit, it was a little tougher for him.
But I will also say, as far as Sam Hartman is concerned, his touch on some of those fade balls was just beautiful. I mean, and again, that comes just with experience, man. Like knowing where to put the ball and just having the touch on the ball. It was nice to see, and there were guys going up making plays too. I was pretty impressed by where he was able to put the ball and how he was able to put the ball there. So it was fun to watch. It was literally like right in front of us. I mean, we were just watching this go down, and it was good. It was really, really good.
Let's talk about the running backs a little bit, Vince.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, Audric looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he looks smaller. I think he looks leaner. I think there's a difference. Like, he doesn't look smaller. He's still ripped. He just looks a little leaner. And it's really helped his foot quickness.
I was going to say, that's the
biggest
part
thing you noticed today. Yeah. His foot quickness is really good.
Just a little bit quicker, and you're right.
That burst, vertical burst that we saw on that swing pass, that to me was like, okay, that's
where you see it. Yeah. Like, you don't see it when he's running the ball between the tackles, but you can see it when he did. Right. But you can see it when he's catching the ball outside, and then he catches it, and it's just like, oh, okay, there's a little something extra there. Like, yeah, I agree with you completely. And I didn't notice him physically looking any less from where I was at up top, but you could tell that he's gotten just a little bit quicker, and that makes a huge difference.
Because he was pretty flippant. I mean, he averaged 6.8 yards a carry last year. Was it 5.9 yards a carry last year? So he was already at 6 yards a carry last year.
Right.
He is a little bit more oomph, which is what we saw today. Now we'll see if he still has that during the fall, because I've tried to explain this to people. Your body's going to be different at different times. Sean and I were talking about Blake Fisher, for example, and Blake looks a little too thin to me.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me wonders, though, is if they really wanted to work some of the remaining baby fat off and then rebuild him with muscle and get that 5 to 8 pounds back in muscle. But that's where you are. I mean, Paul, I was about to say Paul Longo. Matt Balis is not worried about getting players ready to play a game in August today. He's trying to get them where they need to be for where they are at this time of the offseason. And part of me wonders if, where Audric is on that too, is get some of the weight off and then build it back better a little bit, build it back a little bit leaner. Oh,
sure.
Build it back better. Oh no. Build it back leaner. And you wonder if that's kind of where it's going to be. So he looked good as we expected him to do. Caught the ball a lot today. One thing I did love from the quarterbacks, they were more than willing to throw checkdowns. More than willing to throw checkdowns. And then obviously you had the swing route, which I liked. And so they're playing a blitz period. And so the running backs obviously did a lot of pass pro. They did their fair share of releasing their backs too, because that's another way to beat the blitz is, okay, you want to bring edge pressures, fine. We're going to throw the ball outside and get a running back in space. And they had a couple throws like that. And so I thought that was good to see. And you saw Audric get that one. He got vertical, who's it, Marist? Just embarrassed Marist in space. Like, because you're thinking, okay, I gotta brace for impact even in a non-tackle drill. You're still got to brace for impact. And Audric was running straight, and Marist was trying to get that angle, and Audric just hit him with a quick inside juke. And Marist, that's not a shot on Marist. Every single linebacker was about to get juked on that play. It was just a great play by Audric on that particular play. But I don't want to spend any more time on Audric Estime. We know he's a dude.
Yeah.
I was loving what I saw from Jabron Payne today, Vince.
Yeah. He looked fast today.
We'll talk about the big play, but it's not that. I don't care about that, honestly. It's great. Offensive line opened up a big hole. You ran through it for a 50-yard gain. There was all the other stuff that we saw from him today. The question we had when Notre Dame signed him is, are we going to get to see the guy we saw as a sophomore or not? The really quick, explosive, shifty guy that we saw when he was a sophomore, and then the next 2 years he tears his ACL in game one as a junior. He's banged up his whole senior year. Averages like 3 yards a carry. Are we ever going to see that guy again? Today, we saw that guy. That quickness, that burst, Vince, was there. My favorite run was not the 50-yard run, which we'll walk through what happened on that. Did you see the duo? Because what you have to understand is Vince and I aren't watching the same thing all the time. We're trying to watch different things.
We were in different spaces most of the time,
yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Did you see the duo jump cut he had, outside jump cut he had? Sean and I were watching that. So they're running duo, and he's running straight downhill, and the defensive end crashes in front of Blake. I think it was Blake Fisher's face, or was it Emil Wagner? Might have been Emil Wagner.
I think it was Emil.
So, and Emil just kind of shields him off, and so Jabron jump cuts that, and then explodes vertically, and they got 8 yards. But it was such a great, you just saw that jump, land, boom. That explosiveness was there, the balance, the foot. I don't think people understand how hard it is to jump cut, land, and as you're landing, you're getting into sprinter mode.
Right.
That is what separates the really talented backs from the guys that are not playing at a place like Notre Dame. You know what I mean? That was my favorite run of the day from him, to be completely honest with you, Vince, was that where you just saw, okay, that vision, that quickness, the explosiveness, everything was like efficient. Like there was no like, what do I do? Got to do a lean. No, it's just bam, jump, plant, get vertical, maximize your yards. Really liked what I saw from Jabron Payne today. He was outstanding, man. So let's just say, we said this before spring, if you're a running back, you better hope you don't miss too much time with an injury, because you don't want anyone else to get that kind of action. Because today, I don't know what he's done the other practices, but today, we had an intel piece that talked a little bit about what we saw. And Vince, honestly, he was an even better. We've heard he's been good this spring, actually.
He was the best I've seen, but we haven't seen a whole lot of the running backs, obviously. But
today, he was
good. And he got a lot of opportunity because Logan wasn't dressed. He got a lot of opportunity today because after Payne, it was walk-ons. I believe it was Ketterer, I think, was the next one in. And then there was also number 30 is a grad kid. Either way, they were walk-on kids, right? And so, he got a lot of opportunity today, and he took advantage of it. And look, I'll also be honest with you. When he made that big long run that we're going to talk about, you know who was cheering the loudest because he was right in front of me? Was Logan Diggs.
Yes.
He was super pumped up about it. So, they still have that brotherhood in that room.
Love that room.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I was very impressed. And who was right behind Logan Diggs cheering for him? Jadarian Price. Again, that's just kind of where you want to be. But he looked really good today, and he's filled out his lower body. He's really good. He's not big, Vince, but he definitely has that running back build.
Yeah.
Like he's short and squatty.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I didn't get a chance to watch him today in pass pro, so I don't know where he was there. He caught the ball okay today. No good, not great.
Yeah.
Didn't get to do much, just some check downs and swings, and misplayed a ball behind him. It was a little tight, kind of turning back, a little slide route.
Yep.
It looked like a bad ball, but that's actually, I think it was Tyler threw it to him, and it was high. Some people thought that it was off target because it was behind him. It needed to be behind him because there was a cornerback closing in. If he leads him, he gets laid out.
Yeah.
So he threw it behind him. It was here instead of here, which when the guy's 5'9.5", that's a little
difference.
harder to do.
Sure.
But he caught it. It wasn't pretty, but he caught it. But his running today was excellent. And we'll break down the long run he had and what I liked about that, because what he showed me today, Vince, was the combination that the top backs need to have. That is a combination of patience, decisiveness. It may sound like it's not, and then of course you have to have the physical tools to make those cuts. But you have to be patient. But once you anticipate or see the hole, you've got to be able to then immediately turn on the afterburners and get where you need to get to. And we saw that we know Audric can do it. We know Logan can do it. We know Chris can do it. Can Jabron do it? Is he healthy enough to do it? Today he did. Not just the duo run, but the long run he had. It was like 50-plus yards.
Mm-hmm.
So they're running it was a stretch play. It was a pistol, right? Then they motioned a pistol.
Yeah.
If I believe, and ran a stretch play to the left. It was with the number 2 offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And Tosh rode his guy wide. I mean, the guy can't. Tosh caught the blitzer. I should have put this in my practice report. I didn't. I forgot about this play. But Tosh caught the blitzer off the edge and just rode him way out, it was a really good block. And then Quinn Murphy, who was the backup left guard today, did a nice job pushing Nana out, which I didn't think he had a real good day today, which we'll get into. Pushed Nana out. And so Jabron actually on a stretch play cut behind the guard, which you'll see that on outside zone, Vince. You don't see that a ton on stretch because the defense slanted out and the offensive lineman did a really nice job of just, okay, fine. You want to go outside? We're going to take you outside. So he made that early cut, but he knew I can't just stay vertical. So as soon as he made the cut, he went back outside.
Yeah.
Which is just good instincts right there. I mean, that's what that is.
But it was all fluid. It was all
it
was like boom, boom, boom,
boom, boom, boom. Yes.
It wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't like stop, stoop.
Right.
It was like.
And then he outran the defense and got vertical for a big gain. And he showed some juice on that play too.
Yes,
he really did.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he only got caught on. It was the backside corner, I believe, of the safety. I forget who. But I mean, just a good pursuit angle, but from the other side of the field, not much you can do about that after 50 yards. You know what I mean? And so. I mean, he had the wheels going up the sideline, and it was funny. I remember Rocco Spindler had a decent block on that as well. He came from the right side, and he kind of prevented his guy from crossface, which was good. And he's just running behind with his hand up like this, doing the number 1, like, woo! And then he got caught from behind, and he's like, oh, I got to catch up. It was pretty funny. I just remember watching that.
Yeah.
But it got like the I don't want to say like the momentum was down like at practice, but like when a play like that happens,
the defense had won a lot of reps.
Yes, I finally heard the offense like on the sideline because the sideline the offense was on. They were literally underneath us where we watch practice. You didn't hear them at all, right? Because there wasn't a whole lot to cheer about. Mm-hmm. They busted off that play, and all of a sudden you hear the offense, and they're out on the field, celebrating, getting all hyped up, and so it kind of brought the enthusiasm back to practice. And it was the last thing that they were doing. And so it really was able to end practice on a good note because eventually they punched it in for a touchdown. But it was really fun to see.
I think that we've said before, Vince, about how loaded the running back room is, right? Well, today it was really thin in numbers.
Yeah, it was.
But what you saw was it didn't matter. Next man in, and that guy can ball too.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was good to see. And, Jabron's had a bit of a tough go of it in the last few years, and has kept battling and ended up at Notre Dame. I mean, right? So, like, all of his injuries led him to Notre Dame, which is good. I still don't think he would have ended up at Notre Dame if he wasn't injured because he would have signed with a Michigan or Ohio State.
Yeah.
But it was good to see him get a chance today and take advantage. That was very, very good to see.
Yeah. He got
So that,
he got his opportunity, and
oh, yeah.
he was fun to watch. Frankly, he was a lot of fun to watch.
Let's move over to the receivers, Vince. You had mentioned earlier that you thought Tobias Merriweather was the most consistent today. I agree. Talk about what you kind of saw, even though he
Yeah,
didn't catch a ton of balls because there was a lot of off-target throws today. He did
but
have one drop, but just
his
overall
route
it was a
running was
lot.
good. I mean, he was the most consistent, and it's funny because he just doesn't remind me of the Tobias Merriweather from last season. And I know that was only a few months ago, but he just doesn't. Like, he was kind of that skinny, lanky kid who was kind of out there figuring it out, the whole thing, right? And again, we weren't there all through fall, to see what he was doing. We didn't see a ton of him on the field, but last fall, he was just kind of out there. He was just kind of there, right? And everybody had ridiculous expectations for what he was supposed to be, right?
Well, and he should have played more. And just
we all can agree on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But he looked more polished, I think, so far this spring. He looks like he understands what his role is, even though that role is probably the number one receiver, but like, he wears it, and he's gotten a little bit thicker, and he runs his routes a little bit cleaner than he was running them in the fall when we saw him, right? Even in games. And he was running his routes fine in games, but it's just different. It's a different feel for who he is. It's just, he looks like a completely different dude. And he was way more consistent today than he ever was in any practice that I saw last year.
Because he got a chance to do more. I mean, last year he pretty much ran like 3
enough.
routes. It was all like vertical stuff, and
right.
Today we're seeing him run stop routes and
Yeah.
digs and ends and goes and posts and slants and pivots and all that kind of stuff. So we got to see the full arsenal. And this is what you saw today, Vince, is what I wrote about coming out of high school with him. Is he's a much better route runner than people realize. He's not just some tall, lanky, skinny kid that runs vertical. He knows how to play the game. He has a very good feel for the game.
Agreed.
And you saw that today, because I didn't think Tobias was necessarily on his game today. Like I know he can be, and like I've seen him before. But he was getting open because he knows how to play. And that's the thing, is you're not going to bring your A game every day from an execution standpoint. Sometimes, your legs are heavy, or not from a production standpoint. Your legs are heavy. The ball's not coming to you. The specific type of practice you're doing may not be geared towards what you do best, all those type of things. And so, but like you said, he's real clean. Like I thought the receivers as a whole struggled getting off the press today. I thought Tobias was the best at it, right? Because what Tobias understands is, and even he didn't do it every time. It's not enough to just win at the line. You then have to stack the guy,
right?
And that's something I thought the receivers as a whole really struggled with today. Is they were just releasing wide, and that was letting the corners just kind of open and run with them, and they weren't stacking at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I thought a lot of them had kind of trouble getting off the line today. And so Tobias understands that a little bit better. And I thought he played well. He had one drop, and I'm trying to remember what period it was in, but he had one drop I think it was on like a stop route or an in cut or something like that. But that was it. Other than that, he caught the ball. I mean, like the stop route he had during that team period from Buckner. I mean, the quick top end was great. But what got him the separation that he needed on that play was he sold the go route off the ball. I mean, he looked like he was running a go route. His body language is all go route. And then bam, he sinks his hips, 1-2s it out of there, and he catches the ball on a stop route. And so you want to see stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
I will say the one thing I was a little disappointed about, and it didn't have anything to do with any of the guys specifically, but the nature of practice with the blitzes and, what they were actually working on, it prevented a bunch of long balls. Like, I wanted to see, what we've been seeing kind of in the clips, right? I wanted to see Sam Hartman
see a lot of those today.
Chuck it deep and see what happens.
He did a few times, but not as much as we've seen.
Not as much as I was hoping for. And that's just me being me. But like, I really wanted to see that. So it was a lot more underneath type stuff, and it was getting the ball out quickly because you're trying to beat the blitz, which is exactly what you're supposed to do when that's the case. So, I mean, I get it. I understand it. Like, from a coaching standpoint, from a fan standpoint, I was a little disappointed. But it is what it is. Now the other receivers, I was disappointed, and I shouldn't be, because it's a work in progress, right? I was a little disappointed in Chris Tyree today. He had a couple drops. I think he had separation though. So I read your piece yesterday, I think it was, or maybe it was the day before, about the offensive things that you found out, and that
The
he's just
intel
running
thing,
away
yeah.
from guys. Like, yes, he is 100% running away from guys. There was one where he was running kind of an under route, and the defender was 2 yards behind him. I mean, but the ball wasn't in a good spot. I think it was high or it was behind him, one of the two, and so he didn't catch it. But man, he had his guy beat. So it's gonna take some time for Chris Tyree to understand, and for the quarterbacks to understand how fast he is too, on some of those things. But man, if they can get that figured out, that's going to be a weapon, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be a weapon that they can exploit. There was one where, like, I think you mentioned it earlier, it was a little bit high, but he needs to come down with that. Like,
Right.
he was kind of fighting the ball a little bit. You could kind of hear it hit his hands. You know what I mean? So he was kind of fighting.
He was
a
rushing.
little bit. Yeah.
I think he was rushing, which is going to happen sometimes when the guy's learning a new position.
For sure.
It looked like Chris was getting a little ahead of himself a couple times. Like, okay, I got to run before I catch it. And like the one stop route he dropped, you could see it. He's going here, but he's already looking over here. Like, okay, where am I going to cut?
And that's where it smacked his hand. Right. Like, yeah, exactly. So again, that's going to take a little bit of time. I love the fact that they're just repping him at wide receiver right now, because he can go catch up at running back anytime. Like, I'm not worried about that at all. He was running a lot with the ones, like you mentioned before. Thomas was taking less reps today. And I think, we think it's probably by design.
I saw him during any team.
Yeah. So Tyree was taking those slot reps with the ones, which was kind of fun to watch. But he wasn't able to make some of the catches that I wanted him to make. So I was a little disappointed. But again, you can't expect miracles in practice number 4 or 5 or wherever we're at in the spring, right? I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to be comfortable as a wide receiver. But man, the speed is there. I mean, he's running away from guys. There's no doubt about that.
It's a process, right? It's a process of just getting more comfortable playing that position.
Yeah.
I thought Lorenzo had an early drop in one-on-ones and then just fought the ball the rest of the day. And you can just see it even on some of the, like, he had he caught a ball on an in cut. I looked at you and I said, he didn't catch that clean, did he? And you're like, no, he didn't. Kind of let it get into his chest because he dropped that early ball. I think it was like a quick out cut. Let me see what the route was. It was the one from Lorenzo. Yeah, he ran a pivot route, just pivot, worked out. It was a good route, got himself open and just dropped it, went right through his hands, and then thought that kind of got in his head a little bit. And
you know what he was doing after practice, Brian? He was on the jugs machine.
He was good.
Yeah, he was on the jugs machine by himself. So, I mean, I give him credit. He knows it wasn't a great day, and so he went back to work, and we've seen him differently in a good way in the other practices that we've been at. So, I'm not too worried about it, to be honest with you. I'm really not. But and he went right back to work. So, I did like that.
Well, I'm worried about it simply because you can't ignore it because it's something he struggled with last year. So you just can't ignore it if he has a day like this. And this isn't the first time this spring he's done it. But like you said, it's good that he's getting back to work. But he just has to start being more confident in his ability to catch the football. That's the big thing. It's just don't let that pile on top when you do make that kind of mistake. Because when he's locked in, he's quick, he's fast, he can get open. It's just he just fights the ball sometimes. Deion Colsey had an interesting day today, I thought. Very inconsistent with his get off. That was an issue for him today. But his catch radius is still just outstanding. The one thing we need to see from him more consistently, Vince.
Hey, I haven't been around in a while, man.
I know, man. I know. I'm not happy about that. The other night. The thing is, he's a big, strong kid that doesn't always play like a big, strong kid.
Yeah.
And that needs to be more consistent because when he does, he's really good. And I thought the ball that Sam threw to him for that touchdown, if he's not locked in on that route and doesn't have good instincts and good body control, he's not able to stop for that ball. Sam just sails it behind him and it goes incomplete. And we're like, dude, where was he throwing that ball? But Deion made the great play on it. And there's other times he'll do that. He drew a pass interference during he had a really nice catch in the red zone period also. There's times where you look and see Deion like, man, that guy can be a star. There's just too many reps to where he allows smaller guys to beat him to the ball.
Right.
And that's my big thing that we saw from Deion today that's been an issue for him in the past is, just need to see him be more
It's consistent. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what it is. He
Yeah.
just needs to be more consistent because you're right. His highs are real high, but his
Yes.
lows are real low.
Yeah.
And he needs to find that consistent balance to his game so that he can be like, we all know that he was a guy that was counted on towards the end of the season. I mean, he was kind of that like, okay, well, it's 3rd and long, probably going to throw it to Colsey because he's going to make a play for him,
And he did.
which was great.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Right.
But they need that from him on 1st and 2nd down too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they just need that consistency. And again, it's a bit of a work in progress. A second year with Coach Stuckey. Let's see how this all. But even with the negative, man, this is a completely different looking Deion Colsey than this time last year. Like, I mean,
he's a good player.
Wow.
There's just things he can do because of his size that nobody else can do. Not even Tobias, because Deion's physically stronger than Tobias.
Thicker and absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the freshman receivers. Caleb Smith, didn't see a lot of him today. He played a lot, but he just doesn't stand out necessarily, which says a lot about the receiver room because he was an honorable mention All ACC player last year that averaged 18 yards a catch in the ACC.
Yeah,
but he's not nearly as big as compared to when he was at Virginia Tech because of how big the rest of the receiver room is. But he had a really nice catch. I'm trying to remember what route it was, Vince, and I just made a note of it. He ran a really nice, it was late in the team period. He ran a really nice out cut in the end zone. Getting open on an out cut in the red zone is not easy because the DBs are waiting on those routes, right? Because they don't have to worry about it's not like you're running a seam route from the 10.
Right.
And so he ran a really nice route, leaned Ryan Barnes in and stuck the out and caught the pass for a touchdown. And then later he was getting held, but he made it. And it's my favorite receiver play of the day, because we have seen it so little from the receivers in past years. One of the big complaints that you and I have made about the receivers in recent years, thank you, is they don't fight for the ball enough, which then not only did not make catches, but you don't draw pass interferences.
Right.
And Caleb had a play today where he's getting held, but you couldn't see the hold because I think it was it Benjamin Morrison or was it Jaden Mickey? I can't remember who it was. Might have been Jade. I think it was Jaden Mickey. Jaden was holding him, but it was a good hold because he was really tight to him. And you're not going to see that as a ref. And the ball was thrown like a back shoulder, and Caleb knew he was being held, and he ripped around and went for the ball and just was like flailing, right?
Yeah, that was on the sideline right underneath us, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
But it was incomplete, but it drew because the refs were there.
Drew the flag. Drew the flag.
And I'm like, if he doesn't come, it wasn't a great ball either. Like it
ended up being like
a shot to catch it.
It ended up looking like they were attempting to do a back shoulder.
They were do back shoulder, but wasn't really an accurate throw.
Right.
But because of how he played that ball, that's that savvy veteranness of him. Because he competed for the ball aggressively, all of a sudden, this tight, good hold turns into my jersey's being ripped out. And
it almost turned into a bear hug. Like it was such an obvious PI at that point. But
it doesn't if he doesn't compete for the football.
Yeah,
and that's what I like to see from him today. I was happy to see that. He had a couple nice reps in the red zone that where he uses size. He's still getting used to the offense. They're asking him to do a couple different things, but he's solid. He looks solid. Freshman wise, Braylon James really fast. Today was a rough day for him because he still has a lot to learn as a route runner.
Sure,
a lot to learn. And today they were on him. They were pressing on him, and he still has a lot to learn. And wasn't a great day from the receivers, but you know what I loved, Vince, is Coach Stuckey was all over them today. I mean, he was all over got on Braylon James for not blocking hard, for not getting after in the run game.
He got
on the young guys.
On Greathouse, there was they
weren't getting lined up.
He caught. Well, there was one where he caught the ball and he was going to the outside, and the play was almost over, but I believe it was Barnes knocked the ball out, just punched the ball out. And of course the defense recovered and they're all celebrating it. And Stuckey just crawled up his backside. It's like, dude, you've got to protect the football.
Right.
You
got to play through the whistle.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you kind of quit on the play and they didn't.
Yep. Exactly.
But I thought Jaden settled in outside of that.
Sure.
He really knows how to get open. He should have had a ball. Who was it that missed him on that slant throw? Was that Angeli? Yeah, it was Angeli. He ran a slant route. Was it on Clarence Lewis? I think it was on Clarence Lewis. I could be wrong on that. He ran a slant route, Vince, from the slot where it was a red zone slant route. He just destroyed the safety or the nickel, just destroyed. He was open by 6 yards. I mean, it was a great route. And Angeli just sailed it like 5 feet in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
But man, he looked quick today, though, Vince. That's the thing that surprised me about Jaden today is going through drills, catching the ball. He had one where he caught the ball and like made like a little quick sidestep, made a guy miss. He's got really nice feet, like really nice feet.
Sure.
Better than I thought he was going to have, to be completely honest with you, Vince. I was impressed with what I saw from Jaden athletically. I mean, we knew he was big and strong and knew how to run routes, but he's a really sharp athlete, and I wasn't necessarily expecting that because he doesn't do a ton of that in high school. But his ability to get in and out of breaks quickly stood out to me today. We had the intel piece. We've seen Rico look good. Today, I thought Jaden Greathouse. I mean, he had some mistakes. You've got to get lined up. He wasn't sure where he's supposed to be. He had to fumble. But outside of that, I thought he was the most impressive-looking freshman today. And that's what I love about his class. There's going to be days where Braylon James looks the best. There's going to be days where Rico looks the best. Yeah. Rico had a really nice back shoulder catch again today. And then there's going to be days where Jaden looks the best. And today I thought Jaden was probably the guy that looked the best to me.
I will say I did enjoy when they had the three of those guys playing together. Just the three freshmen on the
outside. You see the future, and you're like, man, these guys are athletic.
It's like, okay, I could get on board with this. Like it was fun to watch those three working together. Yeah, there was some confusion, and there was a couple of like a walk-on tight end was out there.
Yeah, you're gonna see.
Yeah, there was some confusion, but man, when those guys just get up, line up, and play, you can see the talent, and you can see what the future is going to hold. And I'll tell you what, I am not worried about the depth at wide receiver. That is just one thing that I was super worried about last year that has not even entered into my mind this year after watching these guys play. Yeah. I mean, just not even close. Not even close.
Yeah, it's an impressive group. And again, they're not even halfway through their first springs. It's an impressive group of players. There's a lot of talent. Just got a lot to work on, as you'd expect. Sure. And again, today the DBs had a good day.
They did. Oh, I agree.
And we'll get into that. Vince, I didn't really pay much attention to the tight ends today, just because, again, it's thin. I didn't spend a lot of time on them today. They were blocking mostly. They were in slide routes.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot to see for me. Did you notice anything you feel like talking about?
Nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, it was let me see here. Who did I see primarily? It was obviously Mitchell Evans was there, and then Holden Stays would come in. And who was the next one in?
David Sherwood.
Sherwood was in there.
And Sherwood had several grabs on quit slide routes against the blitz. So
Yep. And then actually Justin Fisher was the next tight end in. There was
really? Is that 23? I was wondering who that was.
Okay. Yeah, that's Justin Fisher. He was the old quarterback at Mishawaka. So so he's kind of worked his way up the depth chart as a walk-on. So good for him. But
now he's normally a running back, though, right? Isn't he? Like
he's been at the tight end room the whole time. Yeah, I talked to his dad actually a couple of weeks ago, and he has been telling his dad that he feels like he can take the Sherwood role. Sherwood leaves,
so like that H-back thing. Okay, yeah, good. Which would fit him.
Yeah,
fit absolutely. His size.
Yeah. So. I mean, some good things from the tight ends, but nothing. I mean, look, Michael Mayer isn't there anymore. So, I mean, the tight ends aren't standing out like they used to.
Well, and I know the tight ends are going to be fine. So
absolutely.
We've seen them play. I can't watch everyone. And so I just wasn't focused on the tight ends today.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little O-line.
Yeah.
And for those we're going to go position by position. We're starting with the offense. So for people that are, we'll get to the defense, I promise. O-line today. Joe Walt had one rep where he lost around the edge, and I think it was Baptiste beat him around, like late around the edge. Other than that, he was typical Joe Walt. I mean, he was what he was.
Just solid.
Blake Fisher's an interesting case for me. I kind of wonder if he might have lost a little bit too much weight because he wasn't playing with like the same power today that he normally was. He was moving well. And he uses his length and athleticism to still win, but he just didn't seem to have that same power today. So I wonder if they're trying to work some of that bad weight off. Not bad weight. He had baby weight, the young boy weight that now he's turning into a man, get some of that off, and then maybe reshape him with more lean muscle, get him back up to 315, 318 with better weight, healthier weight. I wonder if that's where they are right now with his development because I just thought he looked maybe a little too light. to me, even a 310. But again, it's about how you carry your weight. Had a solid day overall.
Yeah.
He had some really good battles with Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and we're going to talk about him more later. That's the only person that really gave him a lot of problems today was Javonte Jean-Baptiste. He had a solid day. Zeke Correll had a solid day. Let's talk about some of the other guys.
Yeah, so the guard play, I think, is what everybody wants to hear about. We know who's going to start at tackle, and we know who's going to start at center, right? And for me personally, I was like, okay, let's see what the guards have to do today.
Let's just be careful not to talk about use the word injury because I'm not sure what we can and can't say with their new rules of what you can and can't say. So just keep that in mind. I don't want to.
No, I don't even know anybody that was injured, so we're good.
Okay, good.
Yep, I got nothing. I was just watching the guys that were on the field. So, the first team line had Billy Strouth at left guard.
Yeah, left. Just go left to right. Strouth, Correll,
Fisher. Kristofic, Fisher. Yep. And that was the starting five, the vast majority of the practice. And so while you were I forget what you were watching, but I went and watched some one-on-ones that they were doing with the offense and the defense, offensive line and defensive line. And I was kind of charting. And honestly, the offensive line won a lot more than they lost, number one. Okay. Across the board. Now, it was funny to me because I felt like Andrew Kristofic lost more than he won on the one-on-ones, the individual one-on-one, him versus a defensive tackle. Boom. Like he lost a lot, right? But then they started doing some combo stuff. And so what it was is they would have two defensive linemen against like the left tackle, left guard. Then they would have two defensive linemen versus the interior, so both guards in the center. And then they would have two defensive linemen versus the right guard and the right tackle. So when they were doing that, so when he was working with Fisher, okay, he was great. I mean, he works so well in tandem with the other linemen. He's a great teammate as a lineman. And when you're trying to figure out who your best linemen are going to be, how you work with each other is an extremely important piece of that, right? And when it was, so they would twist or they would, they would do some different things. The communication was really, really good. And even when, let's say it was Fisher and Kristofic, even when the outside guy went one-on-one with Fisher and the inside guy went one-on-one with Kristofic did a great job. He did a great job working with the guys next to him. One-on-one, not so much. With the guys, really good. So if I'm the offensive line coach, I like Andrew Kristofic because he works really well with the guys around him. Let's go to the other guard, right? Saw a lot of Billy Strouth today. I thought that at times, and I think Brian can back me up. Do you want to go? You want to talk about what you saw early from Billy?
The early team period, I thought Billy struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because he was on his heels a lot. I think he was kind of I think the blitz period kind of not caught him off guard. Like he wasn't expecting it, but like he was late to react to it early. He was getting, he was high. He was like playing high. He was kind of on his heels a little bit and wasn't consistently getting a push. As you went deeper and deeper into the practice, he got better and better and better. And I thought ended really well.
Yes.
So exactly. I thought early on, Billy was a little inconsistent. He looked like he was swimming a little bit, Vince, to be honest with you. You could just see it in his face. Like you could see his body language was like, wait a minute, what was I supposed to do there? But and then I think he lost his first or second one-on-one he lost.
But then he beat Rubio, I think, at one point.
Powerfully beat Rubio.
Yeah, and there was another one where he was working with Joe Alt, right? And then so it was the two of them.
That's the thing I was going to say is when he started to take off, Vince, is when they went to the combo stuff.
Yes.
That's when you started to see him really, because I think the light went on like, oh, I got this. Trust your technique, trust your footwork. Right.
I mean, I get it. He's a young guy. He's working with the ones for the first time. Yeah. So he's working with Correll. He's working with Joe Alt, for the first time, really, right? During these few practices. So I thought he and Joe Alt just operated like a machine. There was one point, I can't remember who the second guy was, but I believe they did a they crossed over on each other, and Jordan Botelho tried to go up against Billy Shrout, and Jordan Botelho may have just as well run into a brick wall. Like, he just got absolutely stoned against Billy Shrout. Like,
I mean, he was coming around hard.
Yes.
And hit Billy and was like, whoop. I mean, just, and that doesn't happen. Jordan Patel's a 255 pound strong dude.
Yes.
And he just hit him like boom. I mean, just hit him with his hands and just like knocked him.
Yeah.
He had a rep later, Vince, that I don't think that you saw, and I'm not sure which. I don't know if maybe it was Maris or something like that, but he caught a linebacker on a stunt move and just caught him moving. Like Billy was moving to him, hit the guy, because like on the one on Jordan kind of went into Billy, so Billy was able to anchor and just stone him.
Yeah.
The one I'm referring to might have been during a pass play, but I can't remember if it was I think it was a pass play. But he was picking up a stunt, and a linebacker hit him, and Billy caught him moving. And he took him about 5 yards and just lifted him off his feet and buried him.
Oh, I wish I would have seen that.
And I was like, all right, this cat's not a joke. This guy is not a joke. And I just thought during team period he settled in, and he's just got some technical stuff. Like in the run game, sometimes he'll drill you off the line and then stop his feet. You just got to keep working your feet through contact. But he did some stuff, Vince, today where when he's on,
I mean, he fits the mold from a physical standpoint, right? As you're looking at the offensive line, like he fits in. He doesn't look too small. He doesn't look undersized. He's a big boy, right? I mean, he fits in. He fits physically. And like you said, there were some youthful mistakes for sure. But man, with he's going to have all spring and he's going to have all fall. I would be shocked if anybody took that spot away from him. I really would.
It's going to be tough.
Just based on what I saw today.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to focus on him because I haven't really seen him do anything live in front of my face. And today I was not disappointed in what I saw overall.
He looks bigger than a guy that's only listed at like 304.
Yeah, he doesn't look 304 to me. He looks like more than that.
He looks at least three. I mean, he may not be more than 304. Because again, like Tim Priest and I were talking about this, like not because the comment I made to Tim was about Javonte Jean-Baptiste because he's only listed at 255. But the comment I made to him, and I asked you first, but I kind of joked that Vince will never tell me if he thinks I'm wrong, and so I went and asked Tim because Tim will if he thinks I'm wrong, he'll tell me. It's why I like talking to Tim. But I said, okay, is it me or does he look bigger than Adi Takumba Ogundeji, even though he's not listed bigger than Adi? He just looks broader, like thicker, like upper, especially in the upper body. He's got a little narrow torso. I mean, like hip core areas, but he's got thick thighs and he's a thick upper body kid. It says narrow hips, but he looks bigger than that. And some guys just look bigger than their listed weight or their actual weight. They just carry the weight better. Whereas Blake Fisher at 310 looks a little too lean. Other guys at 310 are going to look fat. You know what I mean? It's just everybody's different. And so that was kind of my question, Vince, was that right there was, with Billy is he may only be 304. I'm not saying he isn't only, more than that, but he just looks bigger than he's stout.
Yeah.
Not fat at all, just stout.
Yeah.
And so, and he carries that weight really well.
Yeah.
I think the thing that impressed me the most, Vince, today after his power, because he's a very powerful young man, is when his technique is correct, he moves really well. Like that was the thing I wondered is because he was listed like 280 in high school. When he got over 300 pounds, would he carry that weight well? And his foot quickness is what I like. He's got really quick feet when he uses them. Again, that's that young guy. He's got to move his feet better.
Right.
And but he's got some really impressive agility. He looks more athletic than Andrew Kristofic because Andrew has not maintained the same athleticism he had in high school as he's gotten over 300 pounds. He's still he moves well. I mean, he moves solid, but he doesn't have
bodies look different though.
Right.
Like their bodies are
right. Yeah. Billy looks naturally big. Andrew looks like he's had to put on a bunch of weight. That his body's not necessarily like when Andrew Kristofic stops playing football, he's going to get down to 250 in a hurry.
Absolutely.
In a hurry.
Yeah.
Billy's going to be one of those guys that has to keep the weight off. He's just a bigger bodied kid. So I was impressed by what I saw from him, Vince. He was really a standout for me today. A guy that just, as once he got rolling, just had some. He had some misses, but he had several of the more impressive blocks of the day for me.
Yes, yeah, he was a bright spot, a major bright spot for me. Again, I went in there wanting to see what he was going to do. You know what I mean? Because the guard spots are open, and let's see what happens. And he's a young kid who we never really saw last year, obviously, right? The last thing we saw of him was his high school film. So what is he going to do? What is he going to bring being thrust into the spotlight like this? Well, he brought it today. I mean, again, there were some youthful mistakes, but man, I think that kid's going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
Really
good. He is. He moves well. Let's talk about another guy that I know people are going to be fired up about, and that's Emil Wagner. I think from Emil today, we saw some things that make you really excited, and we saw some things that he's still a work in progress, which you expect.
Sure.
He's. I mean, Vince, he looks like a tight end, and that's the first thing that stands out.
He's listed at 278 because I just looked it up because I wanted to see in comparison.
That because he's incredibly muscular.
Right.
But he's narrow hips and not a big lower body, and he carries a lot of that weight in the upper body because he
tucks his jersey up underneath his pads, right? Like the skill guys
only
do.
Offensive lineman I've ever seen do that where you're not like, dude, stop.
Right.
Because a lot of linemen like to tuck their jerseys, and I don't understand why. Dude, people don't want to see that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But not Emil. It's like, all right,
yes,
you do you, buddy.
He looks like a tight end, man. And it's like, man, I wish he put on a little bit more weight in there, get a little bit more, for lack of a better term, we talk about this, like a little more ass into him, right? Like
junk in the trunk.
Exactly, right? That's what I would like to see from him. But man, that dude looks like a tight end. And which means his feet are pretty darn good, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and he got a ton of reps today because he played right tackle with the second and the third team. So he got a ton of reps today.
Yeah. I thought he had some really good moments. We'll talk about the good and then the bad. His length, here's the thing, his length is really impressive. And he has we saw this in high school, but like Billy, this is really the first. I mean, you saw a little bit of Emil in fall camp last year, but not a lot.
Very little, yeah.
This was by far the most extensive. We got to see him in a period where they're actually allowed to hit and with pads on and stuff, right? He has really heavy hands, which we've mentioned in the past. You saw that today. He would get beat sort of off the snap. You could see like, oh, this guy's about to get around him. And then he just reaches arms out and just boom, knock the guy off course. He's got some really nice natural power. That was good. He's going to have to continue gaining weight, which we knew. We didn't expect him to be where he needed to be this year.
Sure.
And when he knows what he's doing, he's really athletic, very athletic. So you saw the traits, Vince, that kind of say, okay, this is why we gave him a 5-star upside grade, because he has things you can't teach, Vince. He has length for days. He has really natural, like a heavy, like he'd be that heavyweight fighter that you just don't want to get caught with a hook because you're going down.
Right.
He's got that really just that power in his punch. And he's got really good foot quickness. He's a little tight, change of direction, but part of me thinks that might be a footwork thing, not a hip tightness thing, because he bends well. I mean, he's a good natural knee bender. So you saw it, Vince, today. The tools for him to be a really, really good football player were evident today. There's no doubt.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt.
Just needs to put on some more weight. I just need him to be a little bit thicker. You know what I mean? Like,
which will come.
Keep the muscle. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's going to come. We just need him to, thicken out a little bit if he wants to be a tackle, So, and not a tight end. They got plenty of those.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Sorry, my wife came down. She's getting ready to leave, and she brought me a tea. So she's getting ready to go to a meeting real quick. So
nice.
Just needed to say goodbye to her. So my apologies. Now let's get to some of the things. Vince obviously got to get thicker, but he's very much a work in progress mechanically. He's very much a work in progress. He's very inconsistent with his pad level. When he has good, like there was one particular play where a guy slanted it across his face and he did a nice job of getting his hands on him and riding him down inside. Then there was another play where Riley Mills beat him inside and Riley just rocked him back. And you could see that lack of size. Riley's got him by 15 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
And he strolled and Riley just knocked him down and made a great play on the backside of the play. that was one, Vince, where his feet were laid out of his stance and he tried to body the guy instead of use his hands to hit the guy. Because if he tries to body a guy, most of these defensive linemen he's going against are bigger than he is. And so it's not normal for an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And but the tools are there. He needs a lot of work. You could see that today. But I was encouraged, though, Vince, by the fact that he does have a lot of tools. There's a lot to work with there when it comes to Emil Wagner. And that was good to see. I was happy to see that. I was very happy to see that.
Well, and I was actually happy that he was working with both the second and the third team because he just got reps. I mean, got a lot of reps, which is what he needs. I mean, that's where he's at. And, he knows his role on this team right now. It's to get better, get bigger, the whole thing. They're not having to count on him to battle for a starting spot or, anything like that. It's like, hey, we need you to be a solid backup just in case. Mm-hmm. Get better, get bigger, get stronger. Like that's what that's his role right now. And it appears that he's embracing it, which is great.
Yeah. I didn't see a lot of the other linemen. We saw very little of Sam Pendleton late. He got into a fight with Donovan Heinisch, which was great. It was a borderline skirmish.
Yeah.
And didn't see a lot from him today. He does move relatively well for a big guy. I didn't see a lot of Ty Chan today. They had him playing at left tackle. Tosh Baker had some good reps in pass pro, Vince. He just has to play lower. He tends to play too high, and when he plays high, guys get under his chest and they rock him back. Mm-hmm. When he sinks his butt, Tosh is pretty good. He just has a bad habit of being too tall out of his stance and just letting guys get into his chest.
Yeah.
And Tosh just isn't a big enough guy to let people get into his chest because he's listed over 300 pounds, but he's a really long 300 pounds. So his 300 pounds is redistributed in a much bigger, wider pack or a longer package. He just was a little inconsistent today. He had some really good reps during one-on-ones where he kept guys from getting his body, uses his length and his quickness to beat him. And then there's just other reps you're just like, come on, man, you're on your heels, you're straight up, you're letting guys get right into your chest and you're getting beat. And that's the stuff. It's with Tosh is you just I guess my frustration is you see the reps, Vince, where you're like, man, I really like this kid's upside. But then there's just too many reps, in my opinion, however, where you just expect a veteran to be further along from a technical standpoint than what we at least saw today.
I agree.
Again, it could have just been a bad day. It could have just been a bad day. So don't get too much into that. But when he plays tall too, Vince, the other problem is when he plays high, it slows him down and he gets slower and stiffer in his pass sets. And that's the other part of it too, is when he has a good base, he keeps his base, his feet work quick, but he gets too tall and he can't move side to side. And so I expect him to be a little bit bigger than that. Ty Chan's a big boy. I did see that from him. He's a big kid. Didn't see a ton of reps from him today, though. We saw him going through individual drills, but I didn't see him taking any team reps today. Did you? I didn't see him taking any one-on-one reps either.
The only other person that I saw do some one-on-one reps that actually looked pretty decent was Pat Coogan. I mean, he won the one. I saw him take 2 reps, right?
Yeah.
He won the one. He kind of stalemated the second one.
Yeah.
Which, okay. I mean, he stayed in front of the guy, but he kind of got bullied back, which I called it a stalemate, but depending on what the play was behind him, that could have been a real problem. You know what I mean? It just feels like a strength and a leverage issue with him and the couple of reps that I saw him take. He was kind of rotating in at that right guard behind Kristofic. That's where he was taking those reps at. So, do I think Kristofic? Coogan.
He was playing center.
Is that where he was at? Okay.
Yeah, he's playing center.
Gotcha.
It's hard to see during one-on-ones because only half
on the other side.
He's
center. So, I think he just still needs to get stronger, man, and he needs to keep his base a little bit lower. I mean, he was just getting bullied a little bit.
I think Pat, when you take Pat on face to face, he's pretty good because I think he is strong. I actually think he is strong.
Okay.
I'm going to somewhat disagree with you, and I think you're going to agree with me. You're going to agree with my disagreement when I say it. The problem is he doesn't move very well.
Yeah.
And whenever someone gets around him and he turns, he loses all his power because he's in scramble mode. And that's what I think you saw in those reps, Vince, because I saw reps where a guy tries to go at him right one-on-one and Pat can move him.
Yeah.
He just is not very athletic. And when people move him or when people can get him to, once he turns his hips, It's like Samson getting his hair cut. He loses all his power,
Yeah.
man. And that's the stuff that you saw today. But that's more of just a lack of athleticism than anything else. He's just got to work on the foot quickness. And I just don't know if that's doable, to be completely honest. I'll say I didn't see any of Rocco during the one-on-ones, but I did notice him during team. He's physical. He really is physical.
Yeah.
He's got the feet. He just has heavy feet. But if he can get his feet to his footwork to be a little cleaner and just get a slightly more athleticism, he could do some things, because he is a strong kid. When he gets his paws on you, he can move you. And he really can. He really can. And that's that was encouraging to see. Is to see that competitiveness and that ability to push people from Rocco today.
Sure.
He's worked with the number 2s at right guard.
Yep.
Behind Kristofic. And so that was good to see. He just got to move his feet better. And I think first things first, just technically, there's still room for improvement for him. And when he's technically sound, he's pretty good. You know what he is, Vince? He's a bigger, slightly quicker version of this. Hear me on this. He's a bigger, more talented version of Kane Madden. Like that's what I'm saying, right? Like heavy feet, not going to be a guy you want getting outside of,
right
here. But if he can play a phone booth game, he can do some things, because he's big and he's physical.
Sure.
He just doesn't move great.
Yeah.
Is that a
yeah?
fair thing?
I see what you're saying. I see the comparison that you're making. I start to twitch a little bit.
I know. That's why I try
to
prepare you for it as much as possible. So Vince, your volume just shot up right then, just now. I'm not quite sure why.
Okay. I've been putting myself on mute a little bit.
When you came out of that last mute, it sounded a little bit loud.
The natives are restless, and
I hear that.
Yes, I'm trying to mute it.
So that's anything else you want to add about the offense, Vince, before we finish up on the defense?
I mean, yeah, look, the quarterbacks were great. When in times the offense, here's what I liked about the offense overall. Okay. A lot of the things I saw that they were attempting to do made me very excited. Okay. Some stuff on the outside, some different, putting some people in some different places. I mean, I saw glimpses of a lot of things that we've been asking for from this offense for a really, really long time. So that gets me excited. Was the execution super crisp today? At times, no. But it's April 1st. I'm not overly worried about that. But the stuff that I saw was very promising. I love what I saw from the offensive line overall. I think they're going to be really good. I really think that, they were picking up a lot of these stunts too. And I'm talking about the first team, right? They were picking up a lot of those stunts, and they were giving their quarterbacks an opportunity to do some things.
I watched more of the 2s during that twist period, and I thought they did a pretty decent job. Especially the right side, the Emil Rocco side, I thought did a solid job with that. Quinn Murphy at times struggles picking that stuff up because he's not really athletic, but he at least competes. But I actually thought the right side, and I know you're saying you didn't, the first team, you're saying that because you didn't see the second team a ton.
Right, exactly.
I thought they did a good job picking that stuff up. I did. There's just a difference in talent with that second group compared to the first group. It's a noticeable gap. I mean, there's a big difference between Zeke Correll and Pat Coogan.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between Billy Schrouth and Quinn Murphy. There's a big difference between Joe Walton and Tosh Baker. I mean, that's really what that comes down to for me, is why the second team part of that's because of how good and talented the starters are. And then we didn't see Michael Carmody today. We see the Ashton Craig today. We didn't see Ty Chan today. We don't see Charles Jagus. I mean, that's part of it too, right? I mean, you got Quinn Murphy taking reps with the 2s as opposed to Michael Carmody or Billy Schrouth. And he competes, but he's a walk-on kid, but he battles his butt off. He had a really great block on the long run by Jabron Payne. Quinn Murphy was part of the side of the line to open that up.
Yeah,
but he just in some of those one-on-ones, he's going to get out-athleted more than some of those other guys are. But I thought that technically, in assignment wise, I thought they did a decent job picking that up. There was a couple times Emil didn't bump out to a twist, and there was one time Blake didn't get out to a twist. I mean, so there were some misses from the offensive line in that regard. But overall, considering how heavy the pressures were, I thought they handled themselves relatively well.
Yeah, I have not changed my opinion that I think this offense can be pretty stinking good. when fall finally rolls around. So
Yeah.
nothing that happened today made me not think that was going to be the case. So very excited about where this offense is.
Let's move over to the defense, Vince, and talk about the Notre Dame defense. I was very impressed with what I saw today from the defense in a number of areas. Number one is, I thought the different things that we saw from them, the blitz packages. We won't get into specifics of what they were doing, just because that's just something that I don't think is right for us to do. Putting that kind of stuff out there. But I thought the things we saw, Vince, was very well designed. They were their overload pressures were not true overloads as much as they were just knowing the weakness in the pass protection scheme and then being able to hit it with the right angles and the right person. I thought that they were super competitive today. That's something that I noticed on all three levels of the defense, first and second team. They were really going to, there was a walk-on safety, Marty Auer, had the hit of the day during team. Caught a little slider. Dude just flew down 100 miles an hour. I think 26 is Chase Dixon, Vince. I know he's listed as a receiver on the board. I think his name is Chase Dixon. And, he had a pick today, which was like, dude, what a great play that was, And Isaiah Dunn is the kid who had that play. He's a walk-on corner. And I'm like, that is a scholarship play right there. Like he baited the quarterback, jumped in front of it, picked it off. And I'm like, that's a heck of a play right there. And
well, at first I thought it was Xavier Watts because I forgot that he changed his number.
But
you know what I mean? Because it was that. Yes, it was that kind of a play. I was like,
he didn't look like, oh, look at the walk-on made a great play. Look at this dude. Who's this dude? Is this
right?
Made a heck of a play. And the reason we point to the two walk-ons is because we saw that from everybody today. I thought even when they would lose a rep, they lost it aggressively.
Sure,
they lost it battling. Yeah. And I think that's something that I liked from them today. I thought the secondary, I have been told the last couple practices has been very pro offense. I think today was those days where the defense secondary said, okay, we got something for you today. And that's exactly where you want to be as a coach. Is you want to see days where one group wins, but then the other group bounces back the next day. That's that competitiveness. So big picture, Vince, I was very impressed with the way the defense, forget the execution, which was good, and the plays that they made and all that. I just like the competitiveness. They were flying around fast. That was a big thing for me, especially the first team. They looked fast.
Right.
Like there wasn't a ton of thinking. There was a little bit of that during inside run, but there wasn't during the pass periods. They were flying around during those periods. And part of it is because it was a blitz period. You're naturally going to be more downhill. But I thought that was good to see, Vince, was just that competitiveness and the speed that we saw from that group today.
They looked a little unfettered. Is that a good word for it? Like they weren't overthinking how things were going to go. They were just playing. And we know that there's speed on this team. We know there's speed on this defense. And when they're just allowed to play, they're going to play fast. And that's what they did today. So I thought that was good. I thought that the defense, it felt like, especially during team, when Notre Dame would drop back to throw, the defense is just like, man, there's a lot of white shirts in where they're supposed to be. I think they only let a wide receiver get loose once, and then it was a bad throw anyway. It was to Tobias Merriweather on the sideline just underneath us. He got kind of behind.
The first team, the first team,
Yeah, he kind of got behind the zone. He was wide open because I don't think Jaden Mickey was supposed to let him go, but he did, and he was wide open, but they missed him. And so it ended up being an incomplete pass. Everything else, it just felt like, man, they're throwing into double coverage or something. Like there's white shirts everywhere. So I was impressed with the way the defense played. And as we said at the very top of the show to begin with, defense won today. Like today was the defense's day. Again, part of that is due to the manner in which they were doing things with, having it be a blitz practice. But at the same time, they executed. They did what they were supposed to do, and they came and they played. And so it was fun to watch the defense today. No doubt about that.
Let's start up front. I thought there was really three guys above all others that stood out to me today as the best. And you can add to this, Vince, because again, we were sometimes watching different periods. I thought Jason Onye, Javonte Jean-Baptiste were the two best defensive linemen today, in my opinion. And I thought Riley Mills had a really good day as well. And they were mixing up the units. They were doing some dime stuff at times. They were doing nickel stuff at times. We saw very, very little base defense. And today, the quote unquote first team defense was Howard Cross and Gabriel Rubio, and the second team was Jason Onye and Riley Mills. The Jason Onye Riley Mills group, and now sometimes when I say second team, they weren't always working against the twos. They would rotate them in with
Right. It was the second group of
that second group was without question better than the first group today.
Yeah.
I mean, when Riley Mills and Jason Onye are on the field together, they were dominant a lot of times today. Both of them against the run, against the pass. We had Prince Colley had said something in an interview recently. He was like, you know, Jason Onye is unblockable. I see what he's talking about now. Like, he's not unblockable, right? I mean, he lost some reps too, but he's a really disruptive force. He's big, like legitimately 290 plus now, but his foot quickness and ability to explode vertically is as good as Notre Dame has on the inside right now. I mean, he almost looked like Jason Adamiola coming out of his stance, but Jason Onye shows more lateral quickness than Jason. Jason Adamiola is a straight line, really fast guy, but the reason he didn't make a lot of plays in the ball is he couldn't always change direction really effectively. Onye could. I mean, there's like one series during a team period events where I think Onye was literally in the quarterback's face, and I think it was three straight plays. He whooped a guard twice in the center, and I think he whipped both guards in the center on like 3 straight plays and got in the backfield. And it's just like, dude. Yeah. Like, this guy's a beast. And part of it is because they're trying to slide over to Riley, and then Jason's getting one-on-one. And then, you know, Riley I thought was really good today in the run. Like, there were several times he was beating people up off the line, getting into gaps.
He's getting physical. Like, he was very physical today, was Riley Mills. He was bull rushing some dudes. And I thought that he really showed out with his physicality. And when he did that, he was plugging up some holes by doing that and pushing, you know, some of those offensive linemen back into the backfield, and it was disrupting some of the things that they wanted to do. So I agree with you. I thought Riley Mills, again, I feel like we talked about him a bunch last year, right? But like, I feel like he's starting to really come into his own.
I think at least today, we saw that consistently being good. I think Onye was the big takeaway for me today, Vince, because we had heard a lot about it. We're like, okay, yeah, we'll see about that. But what we saw was like, okay, that's legit. Like, and his motor, it just today did not stop running. But he's a lot like Howard Cross in that regard. If Howard Cross is taking a rep, he's taking it hard. I mean, he's going hard. Like, Howard does not take plays off. Yeah, you know, I love that about you. I mean, am I wrong on that, Ben? Have you ever seen Howard Cross like kind of 3/4 speed, except unless it's like that's what the drill's designed to do?
Right.
Howard's going to compete every single rep. Jason Onye did that, but Jason Onye is about 25 pounds bigger than Howard Cross and much taller and longer. And you know, Howard did what Howard does today. I mean, he was his normal self, but seeing that from Jason Onye today was huge because we've been hearing it throughout fall camp. Or spring ball. I'll have an intel piece hopefully by the end of the weekend on the defense. And one of the things I've already heard from several sources is just how good Jason Onye is. It was nice to be able to, because like here's the thing, Vince. Like, if we would have seen that or been told that, and you know, everyone's like, oh, you know, this guy's really good and he's having a great spring and all this kind of stuff, but then the one practice we get to see, he doesn't do anything. It's like, okay, sure, guys. You know,
right.
Whatever you say.
A little bit of what they're telling us. Yeah.
Right. Because that was the thing with Jaden Thomas, right? That was the big thing. Like, okay, we keep hearing how good he is, but then we see him play and it's like, you know, and then finally he broke out last year. But with Jason, it was nice to see it firsthand because, like, okay, yeah, I see what they're talking about today. If he needs to bull rush, he literally, and this isn't just one-on-ones, Vince. I mean, it's fine. I'm talking about during team. He was getting up underneath guards and centers. There was one time. And I think part of this is why you think Pat Coogan needs to get stronger. But my argument would be he did that to everybody. Is he would get up underneath Pat Coogan's pads and lift him up off the ground and just carry him back into the backfield. Like, he did that to Rocco once. He did that to Billy Schrouth once. I mean, he was just whooping everybody. And so I was just kind of like, that guy just whoops people, man. Like, I was impressed by just how powerful he really was at the point of attack. But he's quick though. That's the thing. He's not just a bull. He's quick. He got around guys. They did one slant where Riley shot hard in front of him and then Jason looped it was like right off his butt and just beat the guard to the spot and got into the quarterback's face. I said, man, okay, this kid, I mean, so far, this kid looks legit. And so it was great to see that. This is why I gave him a 4.5-star upside grade.
Yeah.
It's like you thought if the light went on someday, he's got a chance to be good, but he had a 3.5-star grade because you just don't know if the light's ever going to go on. It was good to see him today. And I'll tell you what, Blake Fisher was having a hard time with Javonte Jean-Baptiste today.
Yeah,
His hand play is impressive.
It's fast too.
Oh,
like he moves his hands quickly, and it allows him to then get around guys. I mean, there was one rep where I saw him go around the outside, and there was another rep where I saw him use his hands and then cut inside. If he can continue this, I mean, I'm not unhappy that he showed up at Notre Dame. I mean, he has an opportunity to be pretty stinking good. And he was going up against Blake Fisher all day. Like, that's not an easy task. And
he's the only one that I saw beat Joe Alt today.
Yeah, true.
And when Joe beat him, which was every other rep, he had to work. He had to work to beat him. And he is long. I knew he was long, but I didn't realize how long he was. And the other thing too is he's a lot stronger. He looks a lot stronger than I saw him than what he was at Ohio State. His upper body has really filled out in his 3 months so far at Notre Dame, Vince. He's got strong hands, but his ability to use his hands, like Blake would get hands on and Javonte would just smack his hands off and then just get around him. He had several reps like that during one-on-ones and team.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I was surprised by too, Vince, and you had noted this as well when you and I were talking, his ability to set the edge in that first run team period I thought was really impressive as well. Because that's the only question. I mean, I know his pass rush is good. We've seen it on film. Could he set the edge the way you need to as a big end? During that team-only run period or inside run period, I was impressed by what I saw from him, from the ability just to be physical at the point of attack. He didn't have the thickest lower body in the universe. I thought he was really good, being able to hold his own on the edge in the run game as well, Vince.
Yeah, no, and that's gonna be something that he's gonna have to. I mean, he was decent at it today, right? I mean, he was better than I thought he was gonna be today, but he's gonna have to continue to get better, I think. Otherwise, teams are gonna run right at him, right? I mean, they're gonna run underneath him or whatever because they think he's just gonna be in there for pass rush. If he wants to be an every down guy on the edge, he's gonna have to do a good job of that, right? And I was impressed today. Like, okay, there's still room for improvement, obviously, but it was way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
which is good, which is really good. And there's time. It's April 1st. Now there's time for him to become that guy, and he's got an opportunity because of what is at that position, right? I mean, he's got an opportunity to be that guy if he can make it happen.
Right. I thought Gabriel Rubio did some nice things today at the point of attack. He's physical. He doesn't have a lot of moves besides power. I thought that Junior Tuilamak had some solid reps today. The Vipers as a whole, I felt like they were just doing power rushes today. I felt like they weren't working on their speed moves that we've seen from them in the past. I think that maybe that was kind of part of the blitz package today, was working on that power move, because they were all doing it, and you didn't see a ton from them today. I'll tell you a guy, Vince, that I was underwhelmed by. Donovan Heinisch. I like that kid. That kid can play.
That kid's got fight.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for having him wear the same number as his brother, because there's a lot of
like
similarities.
Yeah,
it really is.
Out well.
Yeah,
the guy that I was disappointed by today was Nana Osafo-Mensah, and he's done some really nice things from a leadership standpoint. Part of it is they had him playing inside today, and he can't play inside. Again, part of the nickel package is he's not moving inside the 3 technique. This was part of the blitz package, the nickel and dime stuff they were doing today. He just can't hold his water inside, Vince. He can't hold up at the point of attack inside. He got pushed around way too much because he's just not an interior. He's 260 pounds. He's not an interior guy. And I thought that was a little. He was the guy that got knocked down on that long run from Jabron Payne. And he's not an inside guy. That's just not going to work. You know who?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Vince.
I was going to say he was invisible to me today. Like I didn't even notice him, which is bad. Like he's a guy. If this defense is going to be good, he needs to be noticed. And he didn't like cross my face. Like I didn't notice 31. And that in itself is a problem for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he just can't play inside. He needs to be back on the edge. They need to figure out something else for the inside in that regard. Thinking of some other defensive linemen that we saw today. I'm just trying to think through.
Junior was out there a lot.
Junior, yeah. None of the Vipers necessarily blew me away today.
Right. Agreed.
I wasn't necessarily blown away, but I think a lot of it was. Oh, here's what it was. I thought Alexander Ahrensberger had a nice day from what I saw of him. Still doesn't really know what he's doing still. I mean, he's still a pretty raw guy, plays tall, but he's really athletic for his size. He had a couple nice pressures, I thought, up the middle too. They've got Aiden Gobira working at big end, and he just needs another year of getting bigger. Last guy I wanted to talk about. I thought Tyson Ford had some really good reps today. He lost a rep to, I think it was Billy Schrouth, but he had some other really good wins today. He looked quick off the ball, seems to be carrying his weight pretty good.
Good.
I thought he's using his hands well. He had several wins from during the one-on-one period. He was working with down with the second group, so I was watching him. There was one period where I think he had 3 straight wins, just using his quickness to beat guys off the ball. You say, well, he's going against the 2s. Yeah, I know, but he's a 2.
Right.
And if he can beat the 2s, then, that means it's time for him to maybe get some looks with that other side. I mean, there's no reason to put Nana inside if you've got a guy like Tyson Ford and you've got Donovan Heinisch and you've got Jason Onye and Riley Mills and those guys. There's no reason to put Nana inside. You're putting him in a position that's not fair to him to play because he just can't hold his water inside, man. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's something that they need to adjust and correct. They can't have him inside because you're going to see what you saw today because he'll get knocked back at times as a big end. Vince, what are you going to do playing 3 tech? And I know it's dime package. That's fine. Don't have him in there during that.
Right.
It's not fair to the kid.
Right.
There's way too many kids that I thought showed the athleticism.
There's other options
today. Exactly.
Put there
20 to 30 pound bigger options that you can put in there.
And I realize they probably want to do, they want to have the same guys on the field and they don't want to forget. You know what? You want the guy that's going to be best for the job. Sub him in, and you're going to be just fine because there are enough big bodies on this roster that you can put them in on that package and be a heck of a lot better off than trying to slide Nana inside. Completely agree with that.
Yeah. But I did like what I saw from Tyson. It was good to see him out there today making plays.
That's actually really good to hear.
That was good to see.
I was looking at my notes for one-on-one, and I do have one little note here on Ahrensberger because you're right. He just kind of plays, right? Yeah. And he does look a little lost, but I have written down here 90 fast. Like he was quick off the ball in a one-on-one against Kristofic. I mean, he was quick. And so that was my only note was 90 fast, but that was the only rep that he had in that entire period. So, I saw him take a couple. He was kind of going back and forth, but again, you're watching different guys, but I thought he's just tall and athletic. Yeah.
And so he showed me some athletic stuff today, just still technically raw. That's a lot of the defensive linemen, interior guys are that way. They just still need a lot of work technically. And hopefully Coach Washington can kind of get them rocking and rolling. Linebacker today, we didn't see Prince Colley or Jalen Sneed. Neither of them were out there today. I'm not sure if they were discussed, but we're just going to leave it at that for now. They didn't take any reps. I'll just say that. Right. They didn't take any reps. I thought that JD was solid today. We saw Jack Kaiser working inside a lot today as part of the dime package, right? I mean, again, it was a nickel day. We saw a little bit of the base defense. Maris just he's fast downhill, but just doesn't find holes. That's the big thing. Just doesn't find holes. Didn't look great in space. I mean, Aldrich got him that one time. Just kind of looked the same. I thought JD was very good during the inside run period. We saw Nolan Ziegler. I thought he looked pretty good. There was one play where they were trying to run an inside zone, and he just stayed patient reading his gap. And then when the running back bounced it outside, he just immediately went and pursued him and got to him. I'll tell you who really stood out to me athletically today. I think Jaden Osbury is getting used to playing in space. He doesn't always look super comfortable. I'd say the guy that athletically just constantly pops play after play after play after play. I think you know exactly what I'm going to say, Vince. Drake Bowen. That dude is explosive.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one. Did you see the play where they hit him with a wheel route? They hit him with a wheel route, Vince. And it's where me and Sean were sitting. You and Stars were down there. So I think it was away from you, but it was to us.
Okay, gotcha.
And they ran a wheel route, and he just exploded downhill, but he took a too far of a downhill angle. I'm like, they're about to run by him, but he just pivoted and just ran right with the guy. Drake is a dude athletically, and he is strong for a freshman. They have him playing Mike right now. That's, or at least that's where he played today. And that cat looked like a top 50 recruit that we had him as. Now, again, not always where he needs to be as a freshman isn't. And there's a couple reps where he was a little hesitant, but I mean, rarely. Drake goes. And if he's going to hit the hole wrong, he's going to hit the hole wrong going real fast. And there was times, Vince, during that last team period where he just, it's like there's no hole for the linebacker to get through. And all of a sudden you see Drake getting through the hole and getting to the running back. And there was one time where the running back went to make a cut, and all of a sudden Drake just shot through his knees and took him down. I'm like, okay, yep, this is who we thought he was going to be. Really athletic. I mean, he moves at a different speed than all the other linebackers, in my opinion. The Mike linebackers, like that kid's got some juice. He's got some serious juice.
There was one kid who I just want to bring up because he popped in front of my eyes in that the last thing that they were doing. They were, it's the full team or whatever, and the second team or the third team. I can't remember which one it even was, but they're kind of going back and forth. I had some speed coming downhill. Was Preston Zinter?
Preston, it's a good one, Vince, because he looked lost a lot of the practice.
Oh yeah, but
because he's still trying to he's still trying
to
figure it out. I'm like, man, he doesn't look like he. I love that you said that, Vince, because I know exactly the play that you're talking about.
Yep.
I was a little disappointed with Preston for most of practice because it's just he doesn't look like he knows what he's doing, and he's uncertain of himself, and he's not running fast. There's one time he made a play and he just kind of put his head down. You can tell he's sweet. You've seen it, Vince. I've seen it. It's that freshman kid that's like, I have no clue what I'm doing, and I'm struggling. But during that team period, it was was it a run? It was a run.
It was a run.
Jaden Osbury blew up the lead blocker and forced a bounce.
Yep.
Because it was all the two freshmen made a play. Jaden was playing Rover. He came up and rocked the lead blocker and forced a bounce. And all of a sudden, behind him, you see Drake. Preston was the will on that play, Vince.
Was he really?
So Drake crashed inside, and all of a sudden, you see Preston Zinter come from the will and just explode like a missile, right? Because you know what? He didn't have to think.
Yeah,
I see the ball.
Go.
And I was like, okay, that's the dude that I thought was on high school. I know exactly. That's the play you're talking about, right, Vince?
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm like, that running back's going to beat him out. As fast as the running back's going to beat him outside.
Nope.
No.
And I was like,
he hit him at the line.
Like, yes. Like he came over the top and then downhill.
Yes.
In a hurry.
Yeah.
In a hurry. Yeah. So and I had to look him up. I was like, who the heck is 25?
Right.
Like, oh, okay, all right.
He looked lost for so much of the practice, and it's obviously lost because he was he wasn't a true off-ball linebacker in high school. He played tight end and off the edge, and
he's an athlete in high school.
Yeah, exactly. He's still learning, but to see that, because here's the thing, Vince: if you don't accidentally run fast on a play, a guy that's slow doesn't accidentally run fast on a particular play.
Right.
If you can do that once, you can do that a lot more. And that's the thing, because he just was moving at a much slower speed than all the other linebackers throughout the practice. But you could see it in his head. His head was just, Vince, you know the look, man. You coached high school kids. I know you know the look. I coached Division III 1AA kids. I definitely know the look. And it happens to Division I kids too. Yeah. It's that look of, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
And it's overwhelming. It can really get overwhelming. And this isn't a knock on Al Golden.
Not at all.
This happens to freshmen all the time. I guarantee you Drake Bowen's going to have a practice like this, and Jaden Osbury had a couple reps like this. Preston especially, he's when I say not a natural linebacker, it just means he hasn't played pure off-ball linebacker in his career. That's what I mean by that.
Right.
And you could just see he was swimming mentally. But there was another play that he did. He had was it a blitz where he showed good downhill speed? But when you saw that play, you're like, that's the guy that we saw coming out of high school.
Right.
That's the guy that Marcus Freeman fell in love with when he saw his film. That's the guy that Marcus Freeman said, I got to get that guy.
Yeah.
And so you say he's got it in him, because you like a kid's film, but then you watch him against other Division I athletes and like, he's not really, explosive like you thought. But then you're like, okay, it's in his head right now. He's swimming mentally because
Right.
you could see him put his head down a few times. I don't ever want to see how, man, you make a mistake, you look to me. You look to me as a coach. I'm going to tell you what you did wrong. Don't put your head down. But that was before that last play. So I love the fact that he came out that last play. And even on the couple of the goal line plays, he came up and, had good sticks on the lead blockers. But that play right there, Vince, to your point.
Yes. He shined on that.
Yeah, man.
No doubt.
You saw the athleticism.
He flashed as like, okay, like that kid can play once he figures it all out, which again, that's not a knock on Al Golden keeping it too complicated and all of that. It's just
because it wasn't an issue for Drake Bowen. I mean, Drake Bowen did that 100 times today.
Who's also playing baseball. Right. So, like, there's a lot going on for Drake Bowen, too.
Drake's going to be a dude at Notre Dame, man. Jaden Osbury's really smooth and athletic, too. But he's getting used to playing in space. That's the thing for Jaden is Max Bulla, who is just constantly coaching. Like, that's something I couldn't – he's just nonstop talking to the linebackers.
Yeah.
Like, I like to hear that. And it's coaching. It's like he's loud. He yells a lot, but it's not yelling like it's he's coaching loudly so everybody can hear it. That's what what you want to do. That's what I told my receivers. I'm not yelling at you. I'm making sure that everyone else can hear my correction to you so that they don't make that mistake on the next rep. I thought Max Bulla did a good job of that, or he's constantly coaching. Al Golden works with everybody. Again, he's kind of oversees everything. But those freshmen are talented, Vince.
He didn't really work a whole lot with the linebackers today.
No,
at least
he was working a lot with the D-line today.
Yes. And then when they were doing some 7-on-7, he was back with the DBs. Like he was all over the place.
He's trying to be like an NFL guy, in that he's just the D coordinator and somebody else coaches. I mean, that's really what he's trying to do. We'll see if it works or not. But I got to tell you, man, I was so impressed with the freshman linebackers today because, again, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I was wrong on press and center. But then you see that last play and you're like, oh, he's going to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Jaden's very inconsistent, as you'd expect, some good plays. But when he's on, I mean, he runs, Vince. He can run. But, man, just watching Drake Bowen just play after play, just like shot out of a cannon, you're like, you start thinking of a future of like him and Jaden and Preston and then Nolan Ziegler and Jalen Sneed. And you start thinking, okay, linebacker's going to be just fine. But, yeah, Drake Bowen, there was one play where he just flew on him, and Sean Davis and I just kind of looked at each other and just like we just got our Christmas, we just got downstairs for Christmas. And of course, Sean had to make a couple jokes about, I didn't think he could run though, the sarcastic stuff that people said about him.
Yeah.
He's an athlete, man. And he's a little bigger than I mean, he's a legit 230. He's a legit 6'2", 230, Drake Bowen is. Would you not agree with me that the two biggest linebackers that they have right now, just size-wise, are him and Nolan Ziegler? Are clearly the two biggest linebackers they have. Like length and thickness. And so I was very happy with that group today, Vince, the young guys. Jack Kaiser is a really good blitzer. They've got to use him during the season. Because I don't know how he does it, but he's really good at getting really narrow and getting through holes. But he knows how to time his blitzes. He was probably, I thought, the most consistently effective blitzer with the first group at linebacker. He was just constantly and he does a really good job too. Kaiser does of getting real tight off twists and stunts.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't loop. I mean, he hits that sucker like right off the backside. Right. I thought Jack looked really good playing inside today. Really good playing inside.
He minimizes his movements that makes him faster, which is great.
Yeah. That was good to see. Let's talk about the defensive back position, Vince. Number one is we saw Ryan Barnes playing a lot at nickel today because obviously Thomas Harper's out, Adon Schuler's out. These are things that Notre Dame has announced. And you were already thin at safety anyway. Ben Minich got a ton of two snaps today with the safeties because that's all they have. They only have 4 scholarship safeties right now that are healthy. We saw Ryan Barnes playing a lot in the slot. We saw Christian Gray getting a ton of reps with the first team at corner. Second team at corner. We saw Jaden Mickey getting a lot of field reps with the ones because, as we expected, Cam Hart takes no team in one-on-one stuff. It's all just individual stuff, which we expected at this because he's still not that long removed from his shoulder surgery.
And Clarence Lewis was playing a lot in the
a lot of nickel. A little bit outside, field outside, a little bit. Yeah,
I saw a lot. Every time I saw him, he was at nickel.
A lot of nickel. We saw Xavier and Ramon at safety, DJ Brown at safety. So let's start first at safety, Vince, and we'll finish with corner. And we're going to finish with Benjamin Morrison. But I thought Xavier looked athletic. There wasn't a ton of balls that came his way today.
They had him up on the line of scrimmage a little bit, playing in the box, which I kind of dig with him.
Ran away from him, honestly.
True.
A lot. Yeah.
Yep. But I like moving him around. I don't think we're giving anything away, saying that. But I just like when they move him around. I think that he's an athlete that can make some plays, in space, and he's an athlete that can make plays in the box. And so I like that they were moving him around a little bit. I saw a lot of action from him pre-snap, which also tells me that he knows what's up. He feels comfortable at safety now, and he was directing some traffic, and he was, I feel like I saw him take that next step from a mental standpoint playing safety. In my opinion, he's got the one safety spot locked up. That's his spot. And he played like that today, in my opinion.
Ramon Henderson might be the most frustrating player on the team for me, because he's so athletic, and he'll do some plays you're like, that's a dude right there. And then he'll just not do that the next play.
Not do that.
It just he has this body language thing that just frustrates me, because he'll have plays, Vince, where like today there was and I can't remember who he was going against, maybe Jaden Greathouse, but he's in perfect coverage, and then he just stops running, and the guy beats him, and it's like, what are you doing? Finish the play, and just sometimes he just doesn't look. He looks disinterested sometimes. I know he's not, but it's just the body language that he has sometimes, and it's just like he's got to learn to finish plays. If he can ever learn to finish plays, Vince, he's going to be really good, because he is fast, and he's long, and he can hit. It's just he doesn't bring it play after play. That's the most maddening thing. Because here's the thing about DJ. DJ Brown's going to bring it every single play.
He may be out of position, but he's going to bring it.
He's not really talented, like for a Notre Dame safety, but he's going to bring it. That's the frustrating thing with Ramon is, man, because when he is on, he is really good. His inability to consistently play with the same effort, play after play after play, is frustrating, in my opinion.
And it's been that way his entire career, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so you don't know if the light's going to go on in that regard. But he does some nice things when he's on.
Agreed.
And DJ Brown, again, DJ is what he is. Ben Minich is a really good athlete. It's a little under. You can tell he's a freshman. He looks physically different than the other guys. He's got to really spend some time in the weight room. Still, safety is a really tough position in this defense. It is. There's a lot safety has to do, and he's just not there yet mentally. But when he's doing drills, he looks really good athletically.
Sure.
It's just when you get him out there in team and one-on-ones, he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, who was it that beat him on the outcut, Vince? It was Jaden Thomas when they were doing when Jaden was still in there getting one-on-one reps. Jaden he embarrassed him. He just kind of leaned him out and hit him with a jab and then beat him on the back line. And then he's like spinning this way and Jaden's going this way.
Wide open.
It was a rookie against a veteran. He just didn't know what he was doing. But when he knows what he's doing, you can see the athleticism from him. He's going to need time. And that's why it's still maddening to me that they haven't moved Clarence Lewis to safety yet. It just
agreed.
I don't know what they're waiting on. They're wasting because they've got a million corners, man. They've got a million corners. But they're going to have to figure something out at safety, because they're very thin back there. And your answer is what? Thomas Harper? Thomas Harper's a nickel. Right. He's not a safety. Right. He's a nickel. You recruited him to play nickel. Let him play nickel. Let's move to corner, Sean, and we're going to do Benjamin Morrison last. I'm going to start with a rookie. Christian Gray is the real deal. Now, he's not as advanced as Benjamin was in the fall last year, in my opinion, technically, but athletically and competitiveness-wise, he's really good. He is it's like Sean looked at me. He's like, you remember watching this junior film, and we're just like, yeah, he's very smooth and instinctive, but does he really run fast? And then senior year, you're like, oh, okay, he can run fast. And you saw today, Vince, he's so explosive. But he doesn't look like explosive because and this is the thing with Benjamin Morrison, he's so smooth that it almost masks how fast he's moving. And that's how Christian is. It's creepy how much him and Benjamin Morrison physically look alike. Their body types and their move. I mean, do you know what I'm talking about, Vince?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you can tell the difference because Benjamin doesn't have that giant concussion thing on his head.
Right.
So you can physically tell them apart.
Sure.
But if you were just looking from the neck down, you'd have a hard time sometimes telling the difference. They're very similar body types, easy movers, and Christian's just like glue in coverage, man. Like
he made plays today. Like he made some plays, and it was like I had to look down. I'm like, 29.
In the pass game.
In the pass game. He's
got to get a lot stronger. Coach Mick was getting on him a lot in the run game stuff. He's got to get a lot stronger in the run game. But yes, pass game wise.
But Ben Morrison had issues in the run game last year too. I mean, he needs to get bigger early on, right? I mean, he was
it wasn't a lack of willingness. It was bad angles, not using your hands to get off blocks, stuff like that. It was, and you got to get stronger. It wasn't a lack of. It wasn't like it wasn't that at all. It just.
I mean, I know we're not talking about Ben Morrison yet, but last year it was more like he's there thinking he's about 30 pounds heavier.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Then he'd make the tackle as he's getting run over, but he's hanging on. But that's where Christian is, right? I mean, because they're 180-pound rookies. Right. It wasn't lack of effort, but it was just, look, you got to beat the right angle. Use your hands to get off this. Don't go this way, go that. It was all coachable stuff. But when they get into pass game, that kid is really good. He is really smooth, Vince. He's gonna be a special one. Like we've talked about how good Rico Flores is. There was a play. I'm trying to think what was it? It was an option route in the red zone, and Rico tried to hit him with a stick move, and Christian was like, "Dude, I'm on you. Like you're not going anywhere," and just was all over him on that route. He is and they had another breakup against Rico on a backline route. I mean, he's so sticky in coverage. I mean, you got to watch that kid play and say, Mick, it's your job to get him coached up and ready to play in late August and September because we're moving Clarence to safety. So we've got Ben, we've got Cam.
Right.
We can use Clarence in the nickel as well. We've got Chance. It's your job to get Christian Gray and Chance Tucker ready to play.
Yeah.
Because you watch that kid play and you're like, he's not a redshirt guy. I mean, if he's got to play. He's got to play. And Jaden Mickey, I thought, looked really good today as well. Yeah. And here's the biggest reason why. The reason Jaden looked good today is one reason and one reason only. He, for the first time that I have ever seen him practice, he showed patience in coverage. Because Jaden's thing is he's so aggressive that you could double move him every freaking play. We saw it in games last year. It's the one thing we warned about last year, Vince, was this is how you beat Jaden Mickey. Give him a double move, and he's toast. And I'm not talking like a stutter and go. I'm talking simply a nod. And he's biting on it.
Right.
There were times today where they were trying to do that stuff to him, and he was just sitting on it. And he was trusting his technique, trusting
that shows scheme. Maturity.
Yes, but he was just look, make him commit. You can run with this guy. Make him commit. And I thought Jaden did a really good job with that today.
Yeah.
I thought he was quite good in my opinion today. He got beat. It's not perfect. He got beat on that pivot route by Lorenzo because he thought it was a slant, bit too hard, and overplayed it. But there's a lot of other times, however, where you're just like, okay, this kid's a good player. He had trouble with Tobias Merriweather because Tobias is so much bigger than he is. And the quarterbacks, but I mean, he showed some really, like, if that's your number 3 corner, you're good.
Right.
You're really good. And then now you've got Christian Gray coming along, and Chance Tucker is up and down, but shows some ability. You're good enough at corner, man. And you get Mike Bell in the fall. You got to move Clarence Lewis to safety. Man.
That's arguably,
it was confirmed to me today.
It was arguably one of the deeper positions on the team, right? Yeah. If you're talking just pure talent, I mean, I guess you could say quarterback because there's only 4 of them, and there's, you can only put 1 on the field. But corner is a deep, deep position, and they're going, and with how not deep safety is, they're going to need to make some moves. And I personally would rather see them do it in the spring, so you can get some live reps there and start learning. But I mean, I guess if they do it in the summer, so be it. But it needs to happen.
Yeah,
It needs to happen
because you're good there, and Clarence
Yeah.
isn't necessarily better. I mean, the way from what I've seen of Christian Gray, by the time we get to late August, he's going to be ahead of Christian Gray, just like
Yeah,
Benjamin Moore.
yeah.
I mean, Clarence Lewis, just like where Benjamin Morrison was.
I knew what you meant. Yeah,
Yeah, and with Jaden Mickey coming along,
yeah,
there's just no reason
he's going to get buried. He's going to get buried, and he can,
or they're going to force him onto the field because he's a veteran.
And they won't be putting the talent.
Clarence needs to be playing. It's just you got to find the right role for him.
Correct.
And I could look if they moved Clarence, if they just watched today's practice and saw what I saw, and we're just like, guys, we just got to do this and move Clarence to safety. I'd be shocked if Clarence isn't starting by the Navy game.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Shocked at safety.
Look, Notre Dame can be very, 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 very competitive with Xavier Watts and Clarence Lewis at safety,
and Ramon and DJ as the rotation guys.
Yeah,
and
no doubt. And then use Harper in the nickel. Like 100%. That, you could be very competitive doing that. Yep. And it's just one of those situations where it's like, well, we can see it.
Yeah.
Can't you?
You know who else they had playing nickel today that I thought, at least against the run, looked really good was Ryan Barnes. He's really physical coming up at the point of attack. The three guys
they had nice tackles in space today, actually.
Yeah, he did.
Some nice plays.
He looked really good in the nickel today, I thought, against the run and the perimeter screens. He just doesn't execute his assignments enough. I mean, he'll be out of position, he'll take the wrong angle, but he made a lot of good plays today, I thought. In nickel, he also ended the scrimmage with a phenomenal play. Now it was an underthrown ball, but he was hip to hip with Braylon James and just out jumped him for the ball.
Yep.
And picked it off. He had another play later where I think it was a wheel route, but they tried to throw it over him and he just got his hands up and tipped it. And then a safety almost picked it off.
Should have picked it off. Yeah. Should have picked it off.
Ryan made some plays today. And I think that play was out of the slot. The one I'm talking about, I think was out of the slot. The one he made at the end on the interception of Steve Angeli against Braylon James, that was as an outside guy.
Yeah, it was a corner. Yeah.
So I was happy to see Ryan making plays today, but they are loaded at cornerback. And we're going to finish with Benjamin Morrison. He's been getting beat a couple times in some of the practices. We've seen some clips. Now, it's not often. We've seen a couple clips of him getting beat, or even I don't know if he just kind of took that personally. I don't know Benjamin like that, but he was a dude today. Like he was a dude. He was physical in coverage today.
Yes.
He's such a patient corner. I mean, he's so incredibly patient, but he was physically, Vince looked so much stronger when the ball was in the air and with routes. And even like one of the plays where Tobias beat him, or no, it's Dion beat him like on the first practice. He was in great coverage. Dion just out-muscled him for the ball because he's 215 pounds. But he competes he's able to compete a lot harder for the ball this year because he looks just stronger.
Yeah.
But his feet, you see him in person and you're like, his feet are, wow. Like, they're impressive, man. They're impressive. He's so smooth. He was a dude today. I mean, he got beat once for a touchdown, but it literally required like an absolutely phenomenal ball and catch from the receiver. And that's going to end up being so good for this team. And when they get Cam Hart back in the fall, that's what's going to make these receivers so good, is because they're literally, this is a literal statement. The best cornerback tandem that the Notre Dame receivers are going to face all year next year is the one they face in practice every day.
Agreed.
There's not a better cornerback tandem on the schedule than Benjamin Morrison and Cam Hart. And they're not even having to face Benjamin right now. Cam right now.
Right.
And so, but
what I can speak to
make them so much better, man.
What I can speak to about Cam, he looks just bigger. You know what I mean? He doesn't look like that freshman anymore. Right. He's put on some good weight, but it hasn't decreased his athletic ability or his speed or his feet or anything else. He just looks a little thicker, looks a little stronger. He plays. I mean, he's always played with moxie, right? But he just plays with the confidence of a veteran type player, because he got his, however you want to say it, your toe into the NCAA world, right? Like, he doesn't play like a rookie. He never really played like a rookie, but he just plays with more confidence. It's like, I'm trying to figure out a good way to say this.
He looks a year older and more physically advanced. I mean, that's what it is.
Absolutely.
And it's making him even better.
Right. So that was good to see, because I think a great player just got better, which
because that's the thing, Vince. It's like, the guys that stand out to me are always the guys that just move different.
Sure.
Tobias looks different than the rest of the receivers, right? I mean, do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And of the veterans, and then you watch Jaden Greathouse, and you're like, that guy moves different.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Drake Bowen, you're like, that guy just looks different. He looks different than the rest of the guys at linebacker, even the ones we like. He's got something about him. Benjamin looks different than all the other corners. I mean, you just watch him play, Vince, and you're like, yeah. I mean, and you and I, look, Vince, you and I have seen some stars. I mean, we've seen,
Sure.
I mean, because you and I go back to, since I got here 2010, we've seen Manti a bunch of times in practice. We've seen Michael Floyd. We've seen Will Fuller. We've seen Julian Love. We've seen Troy Pride. We've seen Jalen Smith. We've seen all those guys with our own eyes. And you can see it. You're like, oh, that guy reminds me of, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And when you watch Jaden Alsbury and Drake Bowen run, you're like, that dude's different. Those cats are different. When you look at Benjamin Morrison, and that's what gets me so fired up about Christian Gray, because there's only one guy at cornerback today that moves like Benjamin Morrison, and it's Christian Gray. As much as I mean, Jaden Mickey did some really nice things today, and Ryan Barnes and Chance Tucker, but it's just like, yeah, those guys are good, but that kid's just different. You know, and there's a lot more of the dudes on that. Billy Shrouth is just different.
Yes.
I mean, he's just a different dude than those other cats at guard. He's just different. Jason Onye today looked different. Him and Riley Mills just moved different than everybody else that they have.
Yeah.
And you see that and you're like, okay, this is what I want to see. This is what you get fired up about. And Nolan Ziegler's that way. We haven't seen Jalen Sneed. We didn't see Jalen Sneed today, but when we've seen him in the past, Jalen moves different. He's just a different athlete than other cats. And there's just so many more of those guys on the team right now, Ryan. Or Vince.
It's okay. You called me Sean earlier too.
Sorry, man.
I
called you Sean and Ryan in the same sentence.
That is true.
I corrected Sean to Ryan, then called you Vince. I see. This is just a sign that you and I aren't doing enough shows together.
I know, right? Seriously.
But that is it. Am I missing something here? There's just more dudes.
Yeah.
Right now on this team compared to the past, and you know, Chris Tyree athletically is that guy. But even like Jabron Payne, you're like, man, that kid, that's your 4-string running back right there. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Not for long. The way if he keeps practicing like he did today, this team. That's what gets me fired up at the end of the day, Vince. Is when you see a Benjamin Morrison, like that guy's different. But you know what? He's not the only guy like that at corner.
Exactly.
That number 29 looks pretty special too.
Right.
You know, you watch Nolan Ziegler and you're like, this guy moves different. And then you're like, but he ain't alone. You see that number 23, you see the number 25, 20, 32, 34, Drake Bowen. And then, of course, Preston Zinter did what he did at the end. And Preston Zinter does it in a 6'3", 225-pound package compared to Jack Kaiser, who's 6'1", 220. You know what I mean? Like, or J.D. Bertrand, who's 6'1", 230. It's just, there's just guys that move different. And that's what's so frustrating about Ramon Henderson, because at times he's that guy, but then other times you're just like, nope, he ain't it. But I got fired up today, Vince, because we saw a lot of those kind of guys.
Sure.
I wish I would have seen more from the Vipers today. That was a little bit disappointing, but I also think they were practicing different stuff. They were doing a lot of stunts with them. They were to me it appeared that they were doing a lot of bull rushes today, which is part of the blitz package, is you know, bull rushing to occupy the tackle to free somebody up.
Yeah.
You know, so just keep that in mind when we say the Vipers didn't do a ton. Just trying to provide context for maybe why that is. You know, because somebody asked me how Josh Burnham did, and I was like, I didn't see a whole lot. He just kept running through guys. But then I was like that's exactly what Jordan did. That's exactly what Junior did. That I just think that's what they were doing today.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I don't remember Jordan, other than one-on-ones, I don't remember Jordan ever trying to run around someone in practice. I just think that's just not what they were working on today. And that's what you do in practice sometimes. It's, hey, we're working on this today.
Yep.
You know, that's what we're working on today. So I just want people to keep that in mind when you're thinking about, well, man, he didn't talk about this guy or that guy. Just keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, Vince, what I'm most excited about is just watching this team. There's just a lot of, I think that guy can be a star. There's a lot of that.
Yep.
And also more of, I think that guy can be really good.
Yeah.
But like, you already know you got some stars. When I watch Billy Shrouth, I'm like, that kid's got a chance to be special. Not just
Mhm.
good. He's got a chance to be special. When I watch Tobias, when the fret, to your point, Vince, you made a great point. Watching those 3 receivers on the field at the end of the practice, you're just like, they don't have a clue what they're doing right now.
Nope.
But when they figure it out, those are some dudes.
Right.
Those are some
Absolutely.
absolute dudes. When you watch Preston Zinner, you're like, this kid has no clue what he's doing. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay. But Drake Bowen was doing that all practice long. Jaden Osbury just moves different. And that's what has me fired up, Vince, is there's just a lot of dudes on this team, more than normal, where you're just like, they got some dogs, man. And you know what I mean by that is where you want to be. Bama has a lot of dogs. Georgia has a lot of dogs. And Notre Dame is getting there. They're not completely there yet, but man, because here's how I see this in happening. I see Christian Gray at some point in time this year being the number 3 corner. And then next year when Cam goes to the NFL, he slides right into that field corner spot. And then the year after that, when Benjamin goes pro, Christian slides over to the boundary and takes over for Benjamin. That's how I see that happening. Like, that's the transition. That's how good he is. And it had me fired up today, Vince. Somebody asked in the chat, and we'll get to the questions here in a minute, Vince. Somebody said, how does this team stack up? And that's what I want to ask you, because this is now your second practice. Just how do you feel right now about this team relative to what we've seen in the past, especially the last couple of years, when you think about where you've been with when you're watching this team in the spring?
The team just moves different. I mean, from top to bottom, this team just moves different. They're faster, they're stronger. I mean, yes, there were some frontline guys obviously in the past, but this is a roster that's different, right? And that's the biggest difference for me, is watching these guys just go through drills and watching these guys, like something as simple as watching the quarterbacks play catch with each other and watching the ball just hit the kid in the chest every single time with zip. And, I can't remember the last time I saw that from all 4 of the guys playing catch with each other, right? Mm-hmm. Watching these guys just go through and do the things that we've seen every other, Notre Dame team go through. They just move different. Yeah. And there's a crispness to it. Part of that is the way they run practice too. I mean, there's just not a lot of downtime. There's not a lot of opportunity to sit around and just be there. So, I mean, that's part of it.
And when they do that, Vince, it's intentional.
Oh, 100%.
About halfway through practice, they just stopped.
Yes.
And guys are taking a knee, getting water. Like, we're going to take a quick little breather, and then we're getting right back to it.
Right.
Did you see that part? I thought that was right before they went to special teams.
But you know what they were doing? They're getting coached up at that point too, because they were with their position coaches, and their position coaches were coaching them up while they were getting their water and kind of taking their break. The rest of practice was go, go, go. I mean, they were always doing something. And I know this is going to sound, maybe it's going to sound trite, I don't know, but the drills that they were doing, you could tell why. They had game day application to them. Okay. They were doing this one drill during special teams where the guys were holding a 2x4, and the guys would come up and they would grab the 2x4 and then they would shed it to shed blocks on a kickoff return. Like, there were very clear applications for every drill that they were doing. No wasted time, no wasted motion. And these guys were in and out of these drills like crazy. It's just different, man. I mean, it's just different. And I know for you not being at practice the last couple of years, so like the practices that you had seen to now, it's got to be night and day.
Yeah, because I went a couple of years and didn't get a chance to see some of that stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, and that's why I've said, like, it's kind of like, Vince, where what you have seen is like, it's like you watch your kids grow up and you see them every day, and you don't always notice. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, you got tall. It happens. Where I'm like, it's like my nieces and nephew. I won't see my niece Layla for 6 months, and the next time I see her, she's like, or my niece Allie for like 6 months, and the next time I see her, like, dude, you grew half a foot. And she's already really tall for her age. But it's just like, it looked, wow, I haven't seen you in a while. And I noticed the spurt. And that's what I say about this team is this team needs a lot of work. It's March. April 1st. They need a lot of work. A lot of technical work with some of the young guys. Guys got to get stronger. Guys got to figure things out. Be more assignment correct. There's a lot of they're very much a work in progress as a team. as you expect on April 1st, not even halfway through spring ball.
Right.
But as you said, there's just more guys that you're just – and Lou Samoji and I would used to talk about this. Like, there's just guys that look different. There's just guys that move different. You know, like first time you saw Chase Claypool, you're like, this kid has no clue what he's doing. But when he figures it out, good night. I mean, you got no chance. I mean, you see those guys, and first time we saw Jeremiah Usukomar, you're like, this kid's not nearly big enough to play college football right now. But this cat moves different than everybody else does. You see it.
Yeah.
And there's more of that on this team. And then the guys that aren't that way, you're still just like, Jabron Payne might be their 4th or 5th running back in the fall. Maybe higher after, you know, what he's
right.
But you're just like, it's not that long ago. He's your number 2,
Maybe
if not your number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd have given Tony Jones Jr. a run for his money as the number 1 back in 2019.
Yes.
And you're just like, that's the thing too, is there's just the depth of talent where you're missing several players, and yet you're still throwing a scholarship dude out there to play.
Right.
You know, and I think that's something else too, and part of that now, look, what's helped with that, Vince, is you've got more early enrollees now. You got 12 early enrollees on campus.
Oh, yeah. It makes a huge difference.
11 practicing. Whereas in the past, they would cap it at 3, and then they capped it at 5, and now they're just like, screw it. Just, you know. And but it was funny because Sean rolled over to me as well when we were watching some of the guards struggle, and he goes, they better hope they figure this out before Charles Jagasol shows up in the summer. But that's another one that's coming here soon, and that's what gets you excited. You watch Joe Alt, and I'm like, I've seen some great left tackles in my days following Notre Dame. I've seen Zach Martin in person. I've seen Ronnie Stanley. I've seen Mike McGlinchey. I've seen Liam Eichenberg, and you're just like, Joe Alt,
yeah,
he's special, right? So that's the thing, is when I'm comparing these other kids, I have something pretty unique right next to it. And I thought your point too, Vince, about how him and Billy Schrouth worked together today from a communication standpoint was really encouraging.
Yes. Because
you can be 2 great individuals, but not be a great partnership. And you need to be that great partnership. And I thought your point about Andrew Kristoff was spot on. In one-on-ones, Andrew does not win a lot.
Nope.
But when he gets out there in team, he's good to go because he works well with his team. How often are guards in one-on-ones in games?
Right, exactly.
Rarely.
Exactly.
Rarely. And that was you made great points today, Vince, but that was one of the best. That's what matters to me. When that kid got out there in team, and when the offensive line, they caught a lot of L's in the one-on-one period.
Yeah.
But when they went to the combo stuff, they weren't catching any L's anymore.
Exactly.
That's more important to me than winning a bunch of one-on-ones.
100%. If I'm the offensive line coach, I want the 5 guys. Of course, I want the most talented guys, but I want the guys that are going to work the best together, because that's what you need to be. You know, you hear the cliches of all the time, you know, 5 to 1, like you need to be the 5 best one-man line, right? Like that's what you want. And if Andrew Kristoff is going to be the best guy to work with the 2 guys next to him, that's who's going to start. Even if there's a guy that has better one-on-one talent, I don't care at guard, center, guard. Like that doesn't necessarily matter to me. Is it great? Sure. But I need you to be able to work well with the guys on my right and the guy on my left, because if you can do that, you're going to be in great shape and you're going to start on a very good line.
Yep. Vince, you ready to move in the mailbag next?
Yeah, let's
We're going to get to the mailbag next, but before we do, folks, do us a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast. If you're not watching, or if you're not a member already, please sign up for the message board. You are so missing out. You missed out on everybody going off on Vince yesterday for him saying that he doesn't think that Notre Dame can win a national championship in basketball. I actually disagree with you on that, Vince.
That's okay.
Now, 10 years ago, I would have agreed with you. But now the way that the game has evolved and the one and dones and just some of the great coaches are out. There's no Coach K anymore and some things like that. I think that Notre Dame could, in this modern era, especially with NIL, if they can get their NIL game right. The basketball team's the one that really needs to step up their NIL game more than football. We'll get to that's another conversation for another day. It's going to be harder, but it's kind of like, remember when Michigan made well, we'll get into that in the mailbag. But anyway, but you missed out. It was a great conversation, and Vince obviously responded, but I'm just giving you a hard time about people.
It was great, man.
People like giving Sean a hard time last night when Iowa beat South Carolina, because apparently Sean said something like it's not going to happen or something. I don't know, but I didn't hear. But anyway, so that's why you got to be on the message board. So definitely check that out at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So let's dive over to the mailbag, Vince. And I did want to kind of follow up on that comment. My whole thing is, in basketball, winning a championship is different than it is in football, because you don't have to be Alabama to win a championship in basketball. You don't have to be Ohio State or Georgia. Sometimes it's just you benefit from the fact that your team played, you caught some breaks
Sure.
in the tournament.
It's about being lucky. I mean,
right.
There's a reason some of these
You got
guys
to be
made it to
pretty
the Final
good
Four this year.
Yeah, you got to be pretty good, but it doesn't necessarily always require, just the greatest team ever. And one of the things I talk about is remember when Michigan made the last time Michigan made the Final Four, made the championship game when they got beat by Villanova? It was like 2018. That wasn't a great Michigan team, but they beat number 14 Montana in round one. Jordan Poole hit that half-court shot to beat number 6 Houston. Then they beat number 7 A&M. Then they beat number 9 Florida State. Like literally the highest seeded team they beat was a 7 seed because North Carolina, the 2 seed, got beat by A&M. And then the 1 seed Xavier got beat by Florida State. Gonzaga, the 4 seed, got beat by Florida State. So they didn't have to play anybody. And then they get to the Final Four. And who do they get in the Final Four? 11 seed Loyola Chicago. Right? Well, then you get to the championship game, and if you're playing a team that you match up well against, you have a shot. And that's all I'm saying is it's not that I predicted or if he doesn't get it, that he's a failure. I just think it can. If Virginia can win it, Notre Dame can win it is the way that I look at it. You know what I mean? It's just they're not going to be consistent. Where I would agree with you, the premise that you're coming is Notre Dame is not a team that's going to consistently be making Elite Eight Final Four runs. They're not.
Right.
They're just not. But they can be a team that can get that veteran team where everybody sticks and the coaching is good and they actually coach defense. And if you get the right draw, you can do that. But to your point, Virginia caught some breaks the year they won it.
Sure.
Right? You need to catch some breaks.
No, absolutely.
The Fab Five caught a break. Remember, because East Tennessee State knocked out Arizona. Remember the year the Fab Five made the run their first year? They were a 6 seed. But what happened was, if you remember, Vince, that year, I think it was Arizona was the 3 seed. That was a really good Arizona team. And they got knocked out by East Tennessee State in the first round. And so Michigan was able to play 14 seed East Tennessee State instead, So, I mean, they caught a little bit of break there, and that's still to beat number 2 and number 1. And then they get to the Final Four, and instead of playing number 1 Kansas or number 2 USC or number 3 Arkansas, which were good teams, they ended up playing Cincinnati, who's a good team, but a 4 seed. It happens that way sometimes.
For sure.
I made the Michigan example earlier. So you need a little bit of luck. I don't see Notre Dame being like an 8 seed and beating 1 and then beating 2 and then but I do think that the right team can get there. Like I think if you take that back-to-back Elite Eight teams, you take that first Elite Eight team and you put it into the NCAA today, that's a Final Four team, in my opinion. That could maybe beat anybody. I mean, that team with Jaron Grant and Pat Connaughton and Zach August, and they can beat anybody in the Final Four this year.
Sure.
Right? Because you catch some breaks where it's not Duke and Kansas, and Kentucky.
No, right. My bone of contention with the entire conversation, and when people latched onto what they wanted to, and that's totally fine, was if I'm Micah Shrewsbury, I'm not coming out of the gate at my press conference and be like, national championship, that's why I'm here. Like it was just a little excessive for me to start. Right. And I get why.
Don't you think it's needed though? I mean, for him to say it, it's needed fine. To tell recruits this is what we're doing, and it's also needed to say to the administration,
it's a recruiting thing. I get
this is what you said you hired me to do. I'm telling everybody that this is why I'm here. Now it's up to you to support us the way that you need to support us. That's kind of the way I look at it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, hey, there's a lot of steps that you need to take before you start saying national championship.
Well, he didn't say they're going to do it next year, did he?
No, but he's like,
okay.
They're like, why did you take this job? He goes, closer to my family and to win a national championship. It's like, dang,
which he's never doing at Penn State. Notre Dame has a much better shot to do that than Penn State does.
Fair enough. Yeah. But, anyway, it was fun to kind of hammer back, and then everybody got pissed at me, and that was awesome. So
it's good. You don't often have people mad at you, Vince.
No,
it's like, welcome to my world. It's like, man, this is what Brian's has to deal with every day. No, thank you.
I think it's great, man, because you know what? I love the passion of Notre Dame fans, and I will also say that, and I put this in my response, like, if Notre Dame is making a run, like, who do you think is going to be in the front row cheering that team on?
Sure.
This guy. Like, I want that.
And I think it's Brian, delete all those videos from back when Shrewsbury got hired where I said I don't want there to be any evidence on the road.
I think he's the perfect hire too for where this team is at right now, where this program is. I think he's the perfect hire. I think he's going to be a dogged recruiter. I think he's going to do all the things he needs to do. But right now he's got 4 scholarship players. Like this is going to be a long road to that, right?
Yeah.
So that's all. That's
the
only point that I was making.
Rebuild the roster.
Oh my gosh!
Completely. Who comes back right now? You got Matt Zona, right?
Ben Allen Lubin so far.
Hopefully he stays because he's pretty
good.
Who
else, but there's 4 scholarship players because Marcus Burton makes 5 because he was the only committed player
that stayed
when all this stuck. Right. Well, now he's basically. It sounds like he's going to bring like his entire Penn State recruiting class, which is 3 guys.
He announced that his son's going to play for him, right?
Yes, that's official. Yeah, that's definitely happening.
So right now, so JJ Starling is gone. Trey Wirtz is gone too, right? Isn't he out of eligibility?
Yeah, he's gone.
Cormac Ryan's in the transfer portal. Tony Sanders, he's back, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Van Allen Lubin, Tony Sanders. Who was the other one we said? Matt Zona. And that's who we're looking at right now.
I think so.
JR. How do you say JR's last name?
Knesny.
Yeah,
JR Knesny.
Right, so that's the 4, and then Marcus Burton's 5. And then now his son is 6.
Yep.
And then I saw that they had a crystal ball for that top 100 forward that he has.
Yeah.
I watched some film of. He's skinny and needs a weight room, but he's a 3-4 year guy, which I like. That's why Notre Dame's sweet spot is not landing the JJ Starlings and the Blake Wesleys. It's fine. Get that guy occasionally. Add that guy to a veteran team, and you might be able to do something. They're going to make their living, however, on those guys ranked 60 to 100 that are 4-year guys.
Yep.
And then if you can have that, and that's what worked last year. You had some good 4-year players, and then you put a first-round talent like Blake Wesley into that equation, and all of a sudden it elevates everybody else around him. Then all you do is take him out of the equation, and all of a sudden this team stinks.
Well, the delusional part was, though, that Mike Bray thought Wesley was going to be a 3-year player.
I know. That's absurd. You've
got
to
have
wanted
some
JJ
realism. Starling and Wesley to play together.
Right.
And that was just not reality.
No one except him thought that was going to happen.
Right, exactly.
Vince, you told me when the kid committed, you're like, this kid's 1 year, one and done. He's one and done.
Right.
But yes, I mean, that's the thing is like, add that guy when you have the team that's ready to compete.
Sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's where you need to be. So it's going to be fun. I hope he does well.
Me too.
It'd be nice to have a men's and women's team that are both good again.
Mm-hmm.
I missed that. You remember the early teens, they both had some great teams.
The women's team is going to be so good next year.
Yeah. Did you see Hannah Hidalgo go off the other day?
Yeah.
She's so little, but she is lightning in a bottle, man.
You pair her up with Olivia Miles in the backcourt.
And
let's have some fun. Like that's going to be.
Well, they went to the Sweet 16 this year without their best player and one of their captains,
and they're the soul of their team.
Yeah. So and still went to the Sweet 16. So it's going to be a fun run, but it'd be nice if they could actually both be good.
Yeah,
that would be
nice. Great. Be awesome.
Vince, you'll read them. Is that cool? I'll bring them up.
Sounds good.
You read them.
Yeah, you bring them up.
You read them.
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
Rob Osgood says, guys, what is your biggest unexpected positive thing that you saw today at practice?
Unexpected. I mean, Jabron Payne. Not that we didn't think. I mean, Sean and I were talking about Jabron Payne yesterday about how we could, but I wasn't expecting to show up at practice and be like, yeah, Jabron Payne's going to be a dude. Like I was hoping to see Jason Onye ball out today. We were looking for him to ball out today. I didn't come to practice like, okay, let's see what Jabron Payne can do.
Right.
Okay, let's do this. So that was a really positive, unexpected thing for me to see at practice today. Was that
for me, it was Billy Schrauth. Like I went there wanting to see how he was, but I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw. And I've heard Brian tell me that that he's going to be really good, and I projected him as a starter. All of those things, right? But I needed to see it with my own 2 eyes, and I was like, okay, like yes, there's a few things he needs to clean up and get better at. Of course, he's still a freshman, right? But man, that kid's going to be good. Like that kid's going to be real good. That was my positive for sure. My unexpected positive.
Yeah, I was happy to see that as well. My only thing with him is it wasn't unexpected that he did well. It's something I was hoping for. I was not anticipating to see Jabron be a dude today. I honestly, I hadn't even thought about Drake Bowen just because, you're thinking about the veterans and what they're going to do, but just watching Drake run today, it's not that it was unexpected. It just wasn't thinking about it. When we were watching team drills and they were like right in front of us, the team period, and you're just watching Drake just fly downhill. You're just like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait till these younger players when the 22 and 23 players are the juniors and seniors in this team. I cannot wait to see that team play.
Right.
Oh man, I can't wait to see that team play. Now, some of them are going to be gone because when the 22 class are seniors, you're probably not going to have Benjamin Morrison anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the reality. But still, you're going to be in good shape. Mike Mickens has done a good job to where he's really loaded up a corner, man. I mean, really, really loaded up a corner.
Does my boy Rico, this is from Gideon, does my boy Rico have a legitimate shot at making the 2 deep or no? Rico is officially my guy now.
Yeah, I would say yes, Vince.
Of
I mean, he has
course
a shot.
legitimate shot.
Absolutely. All the freshmen have a shot to crack the 2 deep.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying any of them will.
Right.
But you know who had a great catch today? We didn't talk about it. Matt Salerno. He had a phenomenal one-handed catch today.
Catch of the day.
By the way.
Catch of the day. It was Sam Hartman threw him the ball, I believe. Is that right?
I think so.
Either way, it was a fade. It was a corner route to the corner of the back corner of the end zone. The ball was placed pretty much at the pylon, and Matt Salerno had a step, and he just reached out one-handed, dove, caught the ball. Like, it was a heck of a catch. No doubt about that. But yeah, Rico, of course he does. I think he's the most polished receiver of the freshman class at the moment from a route standpoint, and he's obviously physically put together. So, I mean, of course he's got a shot, but he's been playing the slot, correct, Brian? Mm-hmm. So right now, I think has he been playing the slot?
Outside. Greathouse has been playing inside.
Yeah. That's right. So yeah, I mean, he's got a shot at it for sure.
Yeah. He looks good. Rico looks good. That's the thing about him and Jaden is when they're running routes, they don't look like freshmen. Braylon James looks like a freshman when he's running routes. He's just a really fast freshman. Those guys look like freshmen pre-snap. When they're like, hold on. Like, there was a play today, they're trying to snap the ball, and Rico's like, hold on. I have no clue what's happening. And then they had to call timeout. And it was kind of funny. It was funny because of where I was, but because I had flashbacks to like that happening with my receivers the first week of fall camp, because we never had early enrollees and we didn't have spring ball when I was coaching, although they have spring ball now in Division III, which is awesome. They should have always had that. But you're just like that practice where you got 3 freshmen out there and you just know what's going to happen. And they're just all looking around like, what are we doing? And the quarterback didn't recognize it. I think it was Angeli. I think it's what it was. He didn't recognize it. I'm like, dude, you got to look around and see that your receivers are lined up and they don't know what the heck they're doing.
Like,
you know what I mean?
Number one responsibility as a quarterback.
Right. It was pretty funny because I thought Rico was trying to get Angeli's attention to be like, what am I doing? And Steve wasn't looking at him. But they've all got a shot, Vince. Because the talent's there. Post-snap, they look great. Pre-snap, sometimes they're not sure what the heck's going on. But post-snap, they look really, really good.
ICURN with Irish Luck. We keep hearing there won't be an Isaiah Foskey on this line, but with how high you were on Jason Onye, raw upside, could we see a Foskey sophomore season impact?
I mean, that's asking it a lot. And the thing about Foskey, his redshirt sophomore year is when Foskey broke out. But we saw flashes of that the year before when he had 4.5, second on the defense of 4.5 sacks. I mean, we saw Foskey in 2020 show flashes. Jason Onye's never played a meaningful down in his life. And for me to put that pressure on him of, hey, you're the new Foskey, I think would be unfair. He's also an interior guy compared to an outside guy. So it's a completely different animal. And so, no, I don't know if I'm ready to go there with Jason Onye right now. I think that'd be a little bit unfair to him. What I'm hoping that he can be is a really disruptive member of a rotation. That's my expectations for him right now. Not, hey, go replace the production of the All-American. I think, what I don't know what other people say, but I know when I say that I don't expect there to be a Foskey, I'm referring to like that individual guy that just gets the volume of production. That's what I'm referring to. Doesn't mean I don't think the line as a whole could eventually be better. It's just the volume, that 14 tackle for loss, 11 sack guy. I don't know if that guy's going to be here this year, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be if you're doing the other things the way that you need to do the other things. But can Jason Onye maybe replace Jason Adamiola's production? Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Am I asking him to be a Foskey, a double-digit tackle, or anything sniffing a double-digit tackle for loss sack guy? Or not just the production, if ICU's looking at it just from an impact standpoint, that's asking a lot of that kid. And I'm just not ready to put that kind of burden on him just yet.
Right,
A kid who's never really played a meaningful down. That's just and a guy who's a lot less still, even though he's the same age that Foskey was. Isaiah Foskey went to De La Salle. He played against the best of the best. Jason Onye played 2 years of high school football in Rhode Island. Like, just he's on a different play. Just give him time. Now, does he have the tools to maybe be an impact guy? Absolutely. It's why I gave him a 4.5-star upside grade. That's that of a national top 50 player. So could he get there? Sure. Am I ready to put that burden on him right now? No, I'm not. I'm just not ready to go there yet. Vince, you have any thought you want to add to that?
No, my biggest thing was I'm not ready to put that kind of pressure on him. Like that's where I was going to come at with this, and him playing a completely different position. The parallel doesn't work for me. I do like the Jason Adamalola parallel, though. I think that one works a heck of a lot better, and I think that's definitely a possibility.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Vince, got my guy John A1's got a 2-parter. I'll bring up the second part as you get close to the end of that one.
Love it. The 2018 linebacker class of Jack Lamb, Shane Simon, and Ovie Ogofu was a class.
He forgot about Bo Bauer.
Oh, and Bo Bauer, of course. Was a class I remember being excited about, but major injuries and transfers derailed it. How can ND ensure it gets the most out of the 22 and 23 linebacker classes? Can Nolan Ziegler become the player we hope Jack Lamb would be before his injuries?
They're different types of players. Couple things about it. Shane Simon, to me, Jaden Alsbury is a lot like Shane Simon in this regard, Vince, in that all the talent in the world, but very raw. The difference is Jaden, to me, is a little bit more instinctive than Shane was coming out. He's not quite as explosive as Shane was early on, but instinctively he's further along from where Shane was. Jack Lamb was a guy that had a ton of talent. He just got hurt in high school. Had 2 knee injuries by the time he showed up. Just couldn't stay healthy. Bo Bauer was a good player. Bo was never a top 100 player for me. Ovie Ogofu was not a top 100 player for me. So I think the 22 and 23 linebackers have a lot higher ceilings to me than those guys did.
Yeah.
And so, there's that, but to the point, that doesn't guarantee that those guys are going to necessarily be productive. So, what can Notre Dame do to ensure that? Keep coaching them. Make sure they always have a good position coach, and make sure that they're playing in a defense that fits their skill sets. That's as simple as that. I mean, that's really the key. And these guys seem to have Ovie didn't have a great feel for the game. Bo Bauer didn't necessarily have a great feel for the game. He was a downhill guy, but never great with reads and being positioned. Shane Simon was more upside than he was proven production. Jack Lamb was really good. He just couldn't stay healthy. There's fewer question marks with this group too. I would say that's another thing, at least for me anyway. So, that's kind of my stance. Just keep coaching them up and make sure the defense fits what those guys do. That's going to be my biggest thing.
I've noticed Notre Dame isn't bringing in any other 24 quarterbacks. This is from Ant VR. Could there be a general understanding between Notre Dame and Carr that Notre Dame won't bring in any quarterbacks if Carr doesn't go on any visits?
I'm not quite sure the premise of this question, but the reason they're not bringing in any 24 quarterbacks is because they already have their 24 quarterbacks.
Right. They're only going to get
one.
So
there's no understanding. It's just like, you're our quarterback and we're moving forward. And CJ Carr has not blinked. There's like this thing going on where I don't know where it's coming from, but people keep like being concerned about CJ Carr. And I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from. Every source that I have from sources I have, around the program, talking to 2024 recruits. Like, I've literally never met anyone yet, to me, that has said anything other than CJ's locked in. The recruits in Notre Dame, he's good to go. He's locked in. The kid's been playing 7-on-7 around the country. That's why he hasn't been on campus. And he's already gone on public and said, I'm committed to Notre Dame. I'm committed to Coach Freeman. Yeah, I love Coach Reese, but I'm committed. He did 2 interviews with national he did 2 different interviews at On 3. And in both of them, they said, talking to him, he's locked into Notre Dame. Yet Notre Dame fans are panicking about how, I don't know because he didn't visit and whatever other. I don't know where this is coming from, but CJ Carr's locked in. I mean, he's anything can happen in recruiting these days, Vince.
For sure.
But he's the last kid in this class that I'm worried about at this point in time. I just don't understand where that's coming from. But there's no need to panic right now. There's no need to be concerned, and there's no need to then take a non-existent situation and create a situation by bringing in another 2024 quarterback. CJ has been very clear with Notre Dame where he stands, and they've got their guy. That's why they're recruiting 25 guys. So, we've said in the past, you follow actions, and CJ has done nothing to me that justifies anyone being concerned about him. Oh, he visited this school. No, he didn't. He was in town for a 7-on-7, and him and his entire 7-on-7 team went. So CJ's supposed to say, no, leave me at the hotel all by myself, not hanging with my guys, because I don't want fans on Twitter losing their minds because I went to this campus
and
while
they
I'm
do.
in else. So CJ's supposed to not do things that he allow him to experience his life and have a good life, because he needs to worry about grown-ups on Twitter freaking out because he was at Washington while, visited the University of Washington with his teammates while out there for a 7-on-7 tournament. Like, come on, y'all. Like, there's what Peyton Bowen. I know that Peyton Bowen screwed Notre Dame over. I get that stings, but let's not turn every kid into Peyton Bowen. His situation was unique to Peyton Bowen. Keon's situation was unique to Keon. CJ's is unique to CJ. Not every kid does things the same way. So let's chill out a little bit and let CJ live his life, which means dominating on a 7-on-7 team, which, by the way, has a lot of Notre Dame targets on it. And so you want him there. Oh, he needs to be in town recruiting. No, he's out of town at a 7-on-7 recruiting Jaden Riddell. How's he recruiting Jaden Riddell? They're on the same 7-on-7 team, and he keeps throwing him a bunch of freaking touchdowns.
Right. He keeps throwing touchdowns to him.
So that's how he's helping Notre Dame right now. And so I want the kid to be able to live his life and not have to worry about every little thing that he does as a junior in high school, about to be a senior, being turned into something that it's not. And I get people need to, make money somehow, but I just don't understand that. I don't. And so then we get questions like this, which I get where you're coming from, but the understanding is you committed to us. Let's rock and roll. There's no need to go anywhere beyond that. And it's been that way forever. And you say it's not unheard of to sign 2 quarterbacks, but why? They don't need 2 quarterbacks. They got a quarterback in the 22 class. They got a quarterback in the 23 class. He's the quarterback in the 24 class.
And they're recruiting one for the 25 class. Like that.
They don't need a quarterback. And if they in the way that it is now, if you need a quarterback because somebody transferred, you go get a guy in the portal.
Right, exactly.
Or you sign a second guy, then, hey, we need to add a guy late because so-and-so left and we need another arm. Okay, cool, coach. I got you. There's no need to do that now unless you're trying to create a problem. And fortunately, Notre Dame is smarter than that, in my opinion. So that's where I'm at. And if your focus, Ant VR, is just on maybe they need a second quarterback, that'd be fair if that was where the numbers were, but the numbers aren't there. There's no need for – you're 21, you're 22, you're 23 quarterbacks are all on the team right now. And as of right now, none have expressed a desire to transfer. So – you get your 24 guy and keep rocking and rolling and do what they're doing now, which is getting Deuce Knight on campus, getting Cutter Bowling on campus, trying to get George McIntyre on campus. That's what their focus needs to be on. And they had Deuce on campus today. And as we said on Thursday, that's the perfect 25 quarterback to bring in the year after CJ Carr. Absolutely. Let's bring this up, Vince. I'll go and read this one. So Mark Brown says, Brian, please pass along our well wishes and prayers to Ryan and his family. I will certainly do that. As you all saw on Twitter today, Ryan's uncle passed away yesterday. And so it was a pretty rough time. Ryan was actually getting ready to start the show with me and found out that his uncle was in a bad place and had been sick for a little bit. And so he had to leave, and Sean Davis was a great team player for us yesterday and stepped in and helped with the mailbag. But just keep Ryan in your prayers, everybody, him and his family in your prayers. It's his mom's brother. So it was a tough day for the Roberts family yesterday. And I appreciate that, Mark, and I'll certainly express that to him. And now we're back on track here, Vince, with Brandon Plensner.
From Brandon, Brian, was Caleb Beasley and Aaron Scott looking like they were enjoying themselves?
Sure. Yeah, they did. Now that doesn't mean anything, but yes, they look like they were enjoying
All the
themselves.
recruiters look like they were enjoying themselves.
They had a
And
pretty cool spread up there,
yeah,
like they like some really good food,
breakfast, and they
and
had lunch, and
we
I'm
had
still
pizza when we were
hungry.
leaving at the end.
I know.
Yeah.
They had to pay
Oh,
for it, but it was
yeah.
there.
They did really?
Yeah, it was $10 a person.
That's ridiculous. Freaking
breakfast
unofficial visits
breakfast
are
was
lame.
$5 a person.
That's
So,
so lame.
maybe they got those signs up just to be like, "Hey, we made them pay." I
Right.
don't know, but
Right.
like whatever.
That's lame.
Yeah.
That's lame. All right. So we answered this question, Vince, earlier. Nate Gibson says, how do you feel about this spring season than the past? I just wanted to pull this up because I knew there was a question about it. I didn't remember who it was from Nate Gibson. So Nate, I appreciate your question. Vince answered that earlier. For me, it's been a few springs, but to me, the difference in past springs there's a lot of questions with this team. There's still who's going to be the leading receiver, who's going to step up here, who's going to step up there. There's a lot of questions, but my excitement comes from the margin for error is probably wider now than it's ever been, just from a depth of talent standpoint. And I don't know who the best receiver is going to be, but there's a lot of options. I don't know who the best defensive lineman is going to be, but there's a lot of options. Those are the things that make me confident about this team compared to past teams. And honestly, this is the best quarterback room Notre Dame has had since 2014.
Right.
When they had Everett Golson, Malik Zaire, and Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, it's without question the best quarterback room they've had since then. Would you agree with that, Vince?
Oh,
I
wholeheartedly.
mean, 15 was good with
From top
Malik
to
and
bottom,
Deshaun and
but
Brandon
yeah.
Wimbush, but this one's even better than that
Yeah.
one,
From top to
in my
bottom, 1
opinion.
through 4. I mean, it's just yeah.
All right, here we go.
From Mark.
Oh, actually, did we see that? Yeah, I think we pulled that one up earlier, right? Or at least one like it.
Yeah, very similar
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Let's go on to this one.
All right, from Jay Henry, do you guys think Payne will get some touches this year? From what I saw today, it would be criminal for him not to get some touches. Now, I don't know what that volume will be or where he'll be on the depth chart, but he can handle touches. And if he's healthy, he's going to get touches somehow, some way.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy for him because it's a loaded backfield. But I think you started to see it last year. Remember, somebody asked me, we had a question the other day I didn't get a chance to get to, but hey, could you see Jabron Payne playing on special teams this year? I'm like, he played on special teams last year. So yeah, I could see that. Because he was the number 2, he was the side beside Chris Tyree on kick return
last couple of games, yeah.
And so yeah, I think he could. I think he could play this year. I mean, look, they're going to have some talented backs, man. I mean, Darren Price and Logan Diggs and Audric Estime and Jeremiah Love shows up in the fall, in the summer. I mean, they're loaded. Somebody's not going to touch the ball as much as they want. I mean, we'll see who that is. But Jabron Payne's a good football player that I think certainly has a chance to get touches this year. No question about it.
Another one from Ant says, how does John Mitchell's commitment to Penn State affect cornerback recruiting? That's right up your alley.
Well, it stings. It does. I mean, we had an intel piece a couple weeks ago after he visited. It was about a week ago where it was Notre Dame or Penn State for him. And obviously Penn State won out. And that was a tough loss because the only other 2 corners on the board right now are the 2 that Brandon asked about, Aaron Scott and Caleb Beasley. I don't feel great about either one of those guys right now. I don't feel great about flipping Caleb. It's possible they could flip Caleb Beasley. I mean, every time I see Caleb Beasley's parents, they look like this is where they want to be, but they're also going to let Caleb make the decision. And right now he seems to be enamored with Tennessee. Can Notre Dame do enough to flip him? We'll find out. I hope so, because he's really good. But right now, I mean, he visited, so you got a shot, but I don't feel great about it. I don't feel great about them getting Aaron Scott from Ohio. I think he's the guy that could go to Ohio State, go to Michigan. I mean, it's going to be tough to beat. And so if you're dead set on taking a third corner, you might have to offer Marcellus Barnes. Personally, for me, I wouldn't offer Marcellus Barnes. I would just stick with the 2 I have and keep trying to flip Caleb Beasley until signing day. That's what I would do. I don't know if Notre Dame's going to have the patience for that, but that's what I would do. But losing John Mitchell, who I liked a lot, that's a big loss for me because I think he was the guy that had the best chance to get of the corners for a number 3 corner. And he's more of a natural nickel, like slot corner, and could also play the field. So that was disappointing to see that loss. And I mean, I get it. I mean, look at Penn State had a great cornerback tandem last year in Joey Porter Jr. and King. And I think King was better than Porter was actually. But they had a very good cornerback room last year. So, I mean, they're doing well there. was hoping they could get John Mitchell, but they ended up not getting him. So it's a big loss. Big loss.
From Irish Mills 540, Brian and Vince, I know you mentioned he's running with the ones as a wide receiver. Love to hear that. But what are your thoughts on using Tyree on kickoff, punt return? Example, the Wisconsin game in 2021. So here's what I will say to that, because I was part of the interview. I was Marty Biaggi was one of the guys that was able to be interviewed today. He's the special teams coordinator. And right now, Chris Tyree is in the mix, not only to be the starting kick returner, but also the starting punt returner. Believe it or not.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't like it either, but that's the name that he's brought up.
Catching the ball. I mean, he's dynamic. He's dynamic.
Right.
But yeah.
They brought him up. He also brought up a couple of other guys as well, but Chris Tyree was a name that was in both lists. And so there you go. But Jabron Payne was back there on kickoff returns. Mickey was back there on kickoff returns. Do you remember who else was back there?
Well, that's when I was starting to compare notes for other periods. I didn't pay attention to a lot.
For punt return, he mentioned
you'll see
Salerno.
Jabron eventually back there. I think Jeremiah Love might get a shot when he shows up.
Sure. He mentioned Salerno. He mentioned Chris Tyree. I mean, he mentioned a third one too for punt returns, but those were the punt return names.
Did he mention any of the freshmen? Did he mention Greathouse at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay, no. I'd be curious. So Salerno, you said Tyree, Salerno, and
Tyree and Salerno were the two big ones that he mentioned for punt return.
Did he say Jaden Mickey?
No.
Christian Gray, Xavier Watts.
It might have been Watts.
Okay.
It might have been Watts.
He's a pretty good punt returner in high school.
So it'll be interesting. I mean, look, he just got here. Like, he's learning these guys too. And he made a very clear point of that. He's like, hey, we're kind of just figuring this thing out. We're kind of figuring out who's going to end up where. And, it's going to be a process. It's still the spring. So,
we're not even halfway through spring.
Right. Exactly. So figuring out who the punt returner is going to be is not high on the priority list.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Here's another one, Vince. We're getting close. We're winding down. But here's another one from ICU.
ICURM with Irish Luck. Do you envision Notre Dame trying to use Chris Tyree like NC State used Nyheim Hines?
No, because I feel like NC State used Nyheim Hines more as a running back that could catch the ball, and I think this year he's going to be a little bit more. A bit more balanced. Who I think I could see them using him like, and I'm going to try to pull up his numbers just for comparison's sake. But the guy that I kind of really think about and who I think that Notre Dame could end up using him the most is kind of like DeAnthony Thomas with Oregon. If you go back and look at his career and you look at his 2011 season, he was a guy that had 55 carries for 595 yards and had 46 catches for 605 yards. 2002, he had 92 carries for 701 yards, 45 catches for 445 yards. Somewhere in there, I think is where I could see him finding his sweet spot, in my opinion. Because I just don't know. I remember, was it 2017? I think it was Nyheim Hines' last season at Georgia Tech. He was a 1,000-yard running back that only had 152 receiving yards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he never caught the ball. His most yards he ever had in a season was 256. So I don't think NC State really used Nyheim Hines like a dual threat guy. They used him like a running back who could return kicks. But now maybe Nyheim Hines is being used differently in the pros. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of NFL, but I think Chris Tyree will be more. I'm not saying he's going to be as dynamic or productive as DeAnthony Thomas, but more closer to that than what we saw from Nyheim Hines at NC State. That's my opinion on that one.
From Brandon, is Colsey going to reach his potential this year? I hope so.
No idea. Full potential?
So.
Probably not.
Right.
But start tapping into his potential where you're like, yeah, he's a pretty good player. I mean, you guys reach their full potential over time. Right, like Will Fuller had a breakout season in 2014, had 76 catches for over 1,000 yards. I didn't think he reached his full potential. There was still room to grow, and we saw that the next year when he was even better.
Right.
And even more dynamic. So he didn't reach his full potential until 2015, even though he had 1,000 yards the year before. Golden Tate had 1,000 yards as a sophomore on 58 catches, but he didn't reach his full potential until the next year when he had 90-some catches, 1,400, because he evolved as a route runner, got more comfortable with different things, and just was a better player. So could I see Dion start to get to that level? Certainly. I could see him getting to that level to where he could be I think what we'll see more, if Dion breaks out this year, it's going to look a lot more to me like Miles Boykin than Michael Floyd, production-wise, right? Like, that's what I think, meaning, 50 catches for 800 yards, as opposed to Will Fuller or Golden Tate or Michael Floyd, who were well over 1,000. Michael Floyd, what was it in junior year? Was he like 70-some catches for like 1,100 yards, I think is what he did that year. And then he had over 100 catches the next year, but let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, 79 catches for 1,025 yards, 12 touchdowns. I don't think we'll see Dion have that kind of production. Again, I think it'll be more like what we saw from Miles, 59 catches for 872 yards. I think that's probably the top for Dion this year. And then maybe next year he could maybe break out like that. But the problem is going to be is you've got other guys that are going to be big-time weapons, Tobias Merriweather. And so that's why I don't think a guy's going to reach like that big jump in potential and production, in my opinion, because there's just so many guys that they're going to throw the ball to this year.
Yep.
That's my 2 cents on that. Thoughts on that, Vince?
That's part I agree with. That's the point I was going to make. You hit it right at the very end, was that he doesn't need to reach his full potential because there's a lot of options. And again, we talked about him when we were talking about the wide receivers. It's all about consistency for him.
That's the key.
And we haven't seen that just yet. I'm hoping to, because I think his ceiling is high, but he also doesn't have to reach his full potential because they can spread the ball around and there's other guys that can, get the yards and the catches and all of that.
Good question.
All right. 5-state revival. Did anything stand out to you today about how the O-line is taking to the coaching of Coach Rudolph? Does it look like the technique of the offensive line is being coached well?
I'd say for the most part, Vince. I mean, I think they're in practice 5 of the spring, so there's going to be inconsistency, especially with the young players. But
sure.
I haven't seen anything like concerning like Zeke Carell's taking a step back or Joe Alt's not as good. Or that's when you start getting concerned about coaching, is when the veterans are regressing. Yes. I haven't seen anything like that in what the limited practices we've seen, which tells me that they're taking well to it. It also tells me he's not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And that's the sign of a smart coach. Hey, look, they had Harry Heastand. I don't need to, to stroke my own ego, change everything and do it my way. Like, that's silly. I don't need to do that. Let's build on it, because there's a lot of similarities in their philosophies. And that's one of the reasons Joe Rudolph got hired when we broke that news, was because the players liked the fact that he was so much like Harry and the things he believes in and the philosophies. Not that he was like, oh, we want the next Harry, but just the best O-line coaches tend to have certain things that they believe and how they go about their business and what's important to them. And we saw that with Joe Rudolph, and that's I think important. So I look, and we've seen Billy Schrauth today got better and better as the thing went on, and Emil's showing some progress. So it's a work in progress. There's a big difference in the veterans, and then there's these young kids who have hardly played at all, and then there's these veterans who've made a lot of snaps, and then not a lot in between.
Right.
So you're going to see some of that. But, I mean, I saw nothing today, Vince, that made me concerned about the coaching. I just saw concerns about experience today, right? Like, when you and I would watch Jeff Quinn's lines, it was across the board like, oh, my gosh, they're just not playing physical.
Right.
Like they were getting beat today at times, but it was never about, oh man, they're not battling. They're not competing. They're not playing physical. They're not playing hard. It was always like, why are they catching so much? I didn't see that today. Right. And when they did catch, it got immediately corrected. It was not accepted or embraced. And it would be like one guy on a rep. Like Billy Schrauth was doing a little bit of catching early, got corrected by later in practice. He's moving people. That's when you start getting concerned. So no, so far so good from what I've seen of them. Now again, we're 5-6 practices in, so it's early yet. But so far, I like what I've seen. And again, this is the first time we've seen any team or any inside run, and what we've seen so far it's been good. It's been good. Thoughts, Vince, on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's different, right? Like when we're watching practice in the past, what's getting coached very specifically because you can hear it. With Coach Heastand, right? And then that's the biggest difference, I think, with Rudolph. Rudolph, number one, he takes the offensive lineman to the other side of the field. So like they're not in their normal spot. And so it's a little bit harder to see kind of what's going on with them because they're not close to us like they used to be. And number two, he's not quite as loud as the last coach. And so you don't know exactly what he's talking about and what he's doing because we're not down on the field.
Or it's colorful.
kind of what I was referring to.
And that's not a knock because I love Harry Easton.
No, gosh, absolutely. And I still love that he yelled at Chris Summers last year. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But from what I see on the field, I don't see a lot of difference. Okay. And that's the biggest thing to me. That's going to be the telling point as to what we see on the field. I don't see a regression at the moment. Now, again, it's early, right? I mean, they could still be going off of what they learned from Harry Easton, right?
And we're saying, let's just be clear why we're saying these things, right? We're not trying to say these things to downplay Joe Rudolph. It's just that we're excited about what we saw from this team, the good and the bad. But we also don't want to make it seem like, hey, they're going to win a championship because of what we saw on April 1st.
Right.
So I want people to be clear that we want to let you all know there's a lot of good stuff we saw today and some things that have to get worked on. And it's good to be excited about this team. It's okay to be excited about this team, but also understand that they're still a work in progress, right? So when we say about Joe Rudolph, Vince is not saying, well, it's early yet and he may end up sucking. It's just like, look, where they are, they are where they need to be for now. Would you say this, Vince? Like, if they are playing in August like they did today, that's a problem. That's Absolutely. A concern because you should be further along. But for where they are right now, I'm happy. And you're missing some veteran guys who aren't out there today, and I'm happy. There's no red flags going off for me when it comes to coaching of this team as of right now.
Agreed.
There are not. But at the same time, there's a lot more that needs to happen. There are potential areas where red flags could come up, but for now, where we are right now, I'm very pleased with what we've seen, because the biggest thing is, Vince, that I didn't see a step back in physicality today. The execution wasn't great, but again, it's a blitz practice, and you're not even halfway through spring. You're going to have some of that.
Correct.
But the physicality didn't take a step back. And to me, that is huge, huge. All right, let's move on to the next one.
From DT, is it DT Roll Hunter or D Troll Hunter?
D Troll Hunter, yes.
D Troll, perfect. I've always wondered that. All right, Brian, was Al Golden letting Max lead the linebacker group?
Go ahead, Vince. I mean, you talked a little bit about that earlier.
Yeah, today, yes. Today, Al Golden was kind of everywhere else on the defense besides with the linebackers. I don't know if that's a normal thing, because this is the first and only practice we're going to get where we're there the entire time.
It was like that during individual of the other two practices we were at.
Fair enough. So, yeah, I mean, it is very clear to me that Max is the linebackers coach.
He's the linebackers, correct.
At least on the field. I mean, so, yeah, Al Golden is going to be the defensive coordinator, so he's going to be all over the place, and Max is going to coach these linebackers. So, we'll see how that works.
Yeah, that is definitely.
Is that how it was last year? Was Laurinaitis the linebackers coach?
Yes, he was the linebackers coach. Yes. Okay. Now I didn't see that firsthand, but yes, I mean, from everyone I talked to, he was
the same situation. Okay.
Yeah, he was. All right, here we go. Got one from NH.
Is there a strategy in what the team practiced during? Well, what the team practices during a media session? Does that strategy change from spring to fall?
Oh, yes, there absolutely is.
I was waiting for you to go with that one.
And that's not always a bad thing. I mean, there's some things that, like, hey, I'm not a paranoid coach that just doesn't want anyone to know anything. But sometimes it's like, hey, let's not do this new thing that we're working on, because you don't work on everything every single day, especially at this time of the year. So, hey, today, let's do this. Let's not work on this. Let's not do this. Let's do this. Yes, there's like, it's not a coincidence that one of the fall practices we got a couple years ago when we could go was, remember that, Vince? It was like everybody out on the different numbers, and it was like it's like, that's one of the practices we get. Like, that was absolutely intentional. Absolutely intentional.
Right.
So certainly there's some strategy to that. It's not always a negative. Sometimes it's, hey, media's going to be here. We're going to go have a practice, but we know there's going to be eyes. So let's make sure that today we're not working on our red zone, our red zone pass package or our 2-point plays. We're not going to work on our 2-point plays today, because we don't want people talking about our, Driscoll Vince, they used to be coaches. They're going to be getting on their show and breaking down the 5 2-point plays we did today.
Right.
So guess what? Let's not show them that. That's smart. Right.
Yeah.
Now I would say, guys, just talk to us and say, hey, man, we're going to work on this today. Can you guys not get into specific like, remember that one year in fall camp, Michael Birch was like, hey, can you guys not
Yeah, he was
specifically
very
do, like,
specific about it.
right. And then one of them was
Okay.
dumb, like, don't list the first team. I'm like, oh, dude, come on, this is stupid.
Right.
But like, they asked us, and like at the end of the day, they can't tell us what to write in regard to this is my evaluation of the team, but they can say, hey, if we're going to let you here, there's certain things we don't want you to discuss. We don't want you talking about injuries
Right.
until the head coach has talked about it. That's fair.
Mhm.
We don't want you talking about, this type of thing. Cause like I've had somebody one time actually ask me this a few years ago, and it was very fair. Can you guys not get into the really detailed, specific route combinations that we're running? Like if you're talking about so-and-so beat so-and-so on a post, that's cool. But when you're breaking down the full detailed play, can you not do that? Fair, very fair. Because I try to look at it from a coach's standpoint,
Sure.
and so when like how I would feel if I was one of them and some dude like me was doing that, totally fair.
Right.
And just communicate that to us. And I think they have the right to do that. If we're going to let you here, because you don't have a right to be here. This isn't like the First Amendment stuff, or because we're media, we have a right to be at every single practice. We don't have a right to be at practices. I understand it's a blessing. I just think they should do it more. It's my opinion. But and I think it's good for fans.
Sure.
But at the same time, I also understand that if the more you let us see, the more they should be willing to say, don't talk about this, don't talk about this, don't talk. Now, what they shouldn't do and what they can't do is don't write that so-and-so had a bad practice. Screw that. I'm not going to, but don't get into specific plays. Don't talk about specific coverages that you saw. Don't talk about injuries and that kind of thing. Don't talk about, let's say there was a big brawl in practice. Hey, can you guys not talk about this, please? I would be somewhat understanding of that because I know what those things are like. They're not a big deal on a football team, but they can be perceived out by outsiders as this horrible thing. Don't talk about how the coaches use bad language because that's football. But other people that aren't football people go, oh, I can't believe they're cussing out the players. You know what I mean? And so, that's my thing is I do think there's a right to do that, but there has to be some strategy when you're a coaching staff. In fair,
Sure.
There has to be some strategy to what they do and don't show when they know that the media is going to be there.
Right.
And I have a problem with that. And does it change from spring to fall? The specifics might, but the overall philosophy does not. But I think they're less prone to hide. That's why if you notice last year, Vince, I think almost all the media available they had last year was early.
Mm-hmm.
When it's still general stuff.
It's before they got into game
still
prep.
Very general stuff. You're just seeing normal pass stuff. And so if you report this, that's fine. We're just working under base offense that everyone's going to know we're going to see. But as they got close to Ohio State, there was no access. And that's fine. That's fine. I have no problem with that. So, yeah.
It's definitely calculated. I mean,
yeah. And I would be that way too if I was a coach. So me saying this I'm not saying this out of anger. The only time I say that out of anger is if they don't show us anything. Like it's some silly
just an entire
practice
or special teams the entire time.
Right.
Like,
that was the one that a couple of years ago was like an entire. Oh, we get to watch full, and it was literally they did special teams the entire freaking practice.
Right.
It's like this. Come on, you're just being a jerk at this point in time. Like if you don't want us to be here, just don't tell me to be here. I won't waste my time driving over here to be here. Like you guys want us to treat you with respect. How about you show us a little bit as well? There was nothing like that today. We saw a legitimate full Notre Dame practice. Absolutely. They just happened to be working on blitz stuff today.
Right.
I don't think it was like, let's not show them our base offense and let's work on blitz today. I think it was more like, hey, we're working on blitz stuff today.
This is what we're doing. This is where we are in the practice plan.
Like and are we okay with the media seeing that? Sure, because most of them won't be able to explain what we're doing anyway. Right. And that's not an insult. I mean, it's just the reality of it. If I went to a basketball practice and they were working on certain sets, I wouldn't be able to explain to you what they were working on. I'm not a basketball guy. So I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that like a disrespectful comment.
I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed it.
It's out here trying to start stuff, man. All right, let's get to some more questions. Here we go.
Get my trident out.
All right, Brick. You hold on to stuff. You do not forget stuff, man.
Keith Selner says, do you think that they will leave both Junior and Burnham at Viper, two high-level recruits? Notre Dame can only have one start.
I mean, that's I don't care. You do not play one defensive lineman at a position anymore.
Correct.
If you have 2 studs at Viper, that's phenomenal. That's not a problem. That's a positive. And there's no reason to move a guy to another position where he may not be as good simply because you can only have one. This isn't Highlander. There can only be one. You know what I mean? Like, you need depth. And if I got 2 great pass rushers, then that means I can take 10 to 15 reps off of one guy's legs every game. So that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing. So I don't see that as a problem at all. At all. We got asked this question too, Vince, from Berkshire Yank about assessment of Joe Rudolph. Do you feel like we answered that in that last part?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a little bit too early to tell, but then also it doesn't appear like he's trying to reinvent the wheel either.
So far, so good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much how I look at it. So far, so good. Yeah. Joe Medina, here going from him.
All right. Says if Cam Hart and Benjamin Morrison have great seasons helping Notre Dame D become a no-fly zone, do you think that will help with Beasley and or Scott, or will it be a non-factor?
Oh, certainly help.
Success always is a factor. Yeah.
The question is, will it be enough to flip them? That's a legitimate question. That's a different question. But will it help? Sure. Just like if Notre Dame goes out there and gets torched in the secondary, it may hurt them with the guys that are already committed, right? Or it'll hurt them in regard to flipping those guys because it's like, yeah, you guys are pretty bad on defense. I don't want to be a part of that. So certainly helps. It's one of those things where, yes, it's fine to say it'll help, but also recognize that helping doesn't equal it's the ultimate end all be all, right? Like, it may help you have a better shot at flipping Caleb Beasley, but it doesn't mean you're going to flip him, right? And I think that's how I take Joe's question is it going to help? Yes, it helps. Is it the end all be all? No. And I don't think he's saying that. It certainly helps. I think at the end of the day, though, the overall team success has to match it too. But I think the concern I have is that I could see a scenario next year where Notre Dame is a really good pass defense, but still isn't as good as they need to be because they're not a great run defense. That's still a concern of mine because that's been a concern for years. And Clark Lee had one really good run defense. The others were just good, not great. And I want to see that if they're going to be a great defense and really maximize the amount of success and wins that they can have this season as a team, they've got to get better running the football, in my opinion, offensively or defensively, stopping the run defensively.
Stopping the run is the big,
and be more consistent running the football than they were last year. But I think that has more to do with the pass game than it does anything else, in my opinion. We got a recruiting question here from Brandon.
Ooh, all right. What are your thoughts now on the 25 wide receiver offer, Deshaun Lanier? Is it Lanier?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I was actually surprised to see him get an offer today.
I hadn't seen a whole lot about him before today. He's a kid from Michigan. I'm fine with it. He's a good player. I mean, we're talking about sophomores. He's a smaller guy, shiftier guy. I'm not sure what his height, actual size is. He looks like about 6 foot tall, about 165 pounds, Vince. He's a really skinny kid.
Wow.
Good route runner, good athlete. I don't know if he's a burner yet, but he's got some speed potential, catches the ball really well. There's several highlights on his tape where he's making tough over the middle catches. There's one he catches the ball at the goal line and gets drilled, hangs onto the ball. So he plays big, plays like a bigger kid. He's got some skill. So, and right now with 25, you're just building the board. You're not necessarily saying, well, we're going to take this guy right now. It's like we're putting the board together, and sometimes we got to offer these kids to have a shot to get to get in the game. And you're seeing some of these teams, Vince, that some of these teams are just offering these kids so early.
Yeah.
That if you don't get in on this kid now, you may not have a shot. Or, for example, like this Deshaun Lanier kid, he hasn't been offered by Michigan yet. And so the reality is if you don't beat Michigan to the punch, the odds of you getting that kid are going to be diminished. So it's not a situation where the kid doesn't have a great offer list. And so, but okay, fine. Be on top of it. Be the first one to have him there to get to that offer. And then because he knows he can't commit right now, or probably knows that. So you're just building that relationship. So,
right.
I'm good with it. And I like more. I want more guys like that. They've got some big guys on the board. I want to get a couple more of those smaller, shifty guys. He's in that Jason Robinson school of play. A little taller than Jason, but very similar overall player to Jason Robinson, who I like a ton in that 2024 class. So I'm good with it. I don't want them to take him right now.
Sure.
I'm just saying I'm good with getting in on that kid. And somebody asked if this is the Cass Tech kid. No, the Cass Tech kid is, I think, Alex Graham in the 24 class. Brandon's asking about a kid in the 25 class from Chippewa Valley.
Crazy. Sophomores in high school.
It's insane, man. It really is nuts.
Man,
It
still waiting on the offer to come through our house, but I'm still waiting.
Yep. All right, let's get to we got a couple more here real quick.
From Keith, considering they almost never throw to the second tight end in a 2 tight end set, would they consider putting Wagner or Carmody out there at times? Obviously, considering they would be attached.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I saw them run a 2 tight end set today, they were all split out. They were detached.
Well, and again, it's because partly what they were working on today.
Of course.
And the other thing is they're really light at tight end right now, numbers wise. So that's going to be part of it as well. But I mean, look, I get what you're saying, Keith, because I get frustrated by that too. But at least with those other tight ends in the field, they're still weapons, because your point is true. They don't throw to those guys much, but those guys run routes. I mean,
they have to be covered.
Mitchell Evans ran routes last year. They just didn't throw him the ball very often.
Right.
They still have to be accounted for to a degree. I just don't think they're accounted for enough relative to what the amount of snaps they're on the field. And I'm pulling up right now kind of what they did last year, because I'm going to give you kind of an example. But last year, Mitchell Evans ran 104 pass routes last year. That's a third of what Michael Mayer did, but that's still 100 pass routes. If you're going to put Carmody or Wagner, like you did Joe Alt a couple years, because remember when Notre Dame was really beat up in 2021,
start
put Joe Alt out there at tight end.
Yeah,
because
they put him in a different number, and
45. Yeah,
yep.
And because they needed that extra blocker and they wanted to have that extra edge, run game, but they were. I think Bauman was hurt again, and they were really limited to tight end. And so what they did was they had Michael Mayer as your number 1 tight end, and then they started putting Joe Alt there. And then later in the year, so then you had to move Joe. Then you had to move Joe Alt to tackle, and that's when Mitchell Evans started playing. So I don't think there's a need for that, except maybe if you want to. Here's where they could do it, Vince. They could do it in the goal line if they don't think like any of the blockers right now are necessarily, or any of the tight ends are necessarily right now great blockers. I could see them doing something like that.
Yeah,
and. Yeah, I could be a part. I could be part of it. Joe Medina asked this question, Vince. He says, was Notre Dame's strategy to never throw to a second tight end or a Reese thing, or was it Drew's inability to read the field? It's not Drew Pine's fault, because it didn't happen the previous years either.
Right.
I mean, it did happen when Jack Cohn was the quarterback, and you can't tell me that Jack Cohn doesn't know how to read a defense.
Right.
We know he can read a defense, and it didn't happen in previous years either, because if you go back and look like 2020, when the number 2 tight end caught a decent amount of passes, that was Tommy Tremble. Tommy that year caught 19 passes, 218 yards. He caught them all early when he was the starter. I mean, he caught, 8 passes in the first 2 games and 11 in the next 10. Because in the first 2 games, he was a starter. He caught 104 receiving yards in the first 2 games, and then only had 114 the rest of the year. So once he got demoted to number 2, he stopped getting the ball. And so when Mayer kind of stepped in the lineup, it was 1, 1, 1, 1, 3 against Clemson, 0, 1, 1, 2 against Clemson, and 0 against Alabama. So they weren't, and his yards were like 6, 4, 1, 11, 1, 18. So they weren't using him much either, which is a mistake to me. I mean, it's a mistake to me not to use that guy more effectively. So I think it was more of an offensive philosophy thing. And meaning, like, not that you don't want the number 2 tight end to get the ball, but just how you're teaching your progressions, you're just not getting to him. And then you as a staff, you're not designing, because this is the biggest thing. Design some plays that are meant for your number 2 to make a big play. You remember and see, the thing that would piss me off, they would do that against teams that sucked. Remember they did that rail route with Brock Wright against Bowling Green in 2019. Got him. I'm like, why don't you do that against Michigan? Like, why do you always do that against the teams that suck? Why don't you ever try to do stuff like that?
They don't want to take chances. They never want to take chances.
Well, then don't do it ever.
Right.
And that's the thing. So I think it was more of a philosophical thing than it was. I mean, I can't blame Drew Pine for something that was an issue years before Drew Pine was the starting quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, that would be incredibly unfair, in my opinion, to do.
Sure.
I think it's just the way that the Notre Dame offense works. Is that going to change? I do not know.
No idea.
I do not know, because it's not just about your read. Rarely takes you to your number 3 or 4 guy, but that's why sometimes you're designing a play to because you're not doing it to get him 8 catches a game, but you can really do some things to get him a big play.
Yes, you can change.
We're gonna
yes. And
I
change
got
the
Davis
field,
Sherwood in the game. When you put Davis Sherwood in the game, who on earth is thinking, watch for 38, watch for 38? Nobody. So you know what you should do in certain situations? Throw to 38. Throw a wheel route to 38 for a big sneaky big play.
Right.
And now every time you get in 13 personnel and you got Davis Sherwood motioning, they have to be on alert. This cat can run and this cat can catch the football, and they're not afraid to throw to him.
Right.
Right.
Even the threat, you only have to put it on film. Like, yeah.
And you don't have to run it again the rest of the year, but teams are going to have to be prepared for that.
Correct.
And when teams get over aggressive, they use it. And so but that's not, oh, it's the number 4 read. We just never got to him. We're designing this to make sure that our number 2 or number 3 and our H-backs are getting touches. Those are the things for me that I want to start seeing more and more of. All right. So Vince, I think that's going to do it for that. So we're going to get out of here as Matt D said, folks. Hey, do us a favor, everybody. Hit that like button, hit the share, hit the notification, hit the like button. See, Matt went a little bit different order here. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, hit the and then share this podcast. That helps us with our algorithm. So we really appreciate that. And of course, join the message board. Matt said it, best intel in Notre Dame football. I tend to agree, but of course I'm biased because it's our intel. But I think it's pretty good. And I think, we've grown organically. We talk about it on this show, but I've never paid for advertising for IB and anywhere. And our advertising budget right now is 0. I want the advertising to come from y'all. You guys are our advertisement. You're the best advertisement that we could get because it's personal experience. And if you like what we're doing, tell your other Notre Dame friends about it. We had somebody join the show the other day, or join the message board the other day. His first post was, hey, I had some buddies that just kept telling me I needed to join. We thank y'all. Have them watch our show. Have them join our message board, all that kind of stuff. So if you have other Notre Dame fans and you're not telling them about ID, you're being selfish. You're being very selfish, and you need to spread the good word. So we appreciate
That's
y'all.
awesome.
I kid. If you're listening via podcast, please give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday. We'll have our recruiting show on Monday and then be back to work. Vince, you're going to be on vacation for part of the week, but you and I are going to do at least 1 or 2 more shows together next week. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So definitely check that out. So everyone have a great rest of your day. I have the defensive practice report out here in a little bit, so be on the lookout for that. And for Vince, I'm Brian. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon on the Irish. Hey, as my wife says, spread the love. Absolutely. So anyway, have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you again soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.